Do you think that having a family impacted or has impacted your performance in any sort of way? F1 driver, his name's Fernando Alonso. He overtakes Michael Schumacher around the corner and he almost caused a crash. But then he was asked about it, and Fernando Alonso, who doesn't have a family, says about Michael, I knew he'd hit the brakes. He has a wife and 2 kids at home. Do you feel that you've ever hit the brakes?
I'm not willing to just take a shot, be better and more strategic. What
does that actually feel like when you get someone's back and you're squeezing on their throat and you're choking them out? What's that feel like?
It feels like such a culminating moment where you've thought about that and you dreamed about it and you've envisioned it and you've wanted to be there in that moment, and then it's almost surreal and you're there.
Welcome to the Better Brain Podcast, where we talk about all things brain health for anyone who has a brain or knows somebody who does and wants to make it better.
Buddy, today's guest I'm particularly excited about. It is Miesha Tate. She's a former Strikeforce and UFC Bantam champion, still competing, still a dangerous fighter.
Awesome to see her because her career's not only marked by those huge milestone wins, but also a never say die attitude, serious resilience, a tenacity. We're gonna learn so much about that, as well as her traditions and practices for brain health. And we're excited to dig in.
And you never know, Dr. Bickhart might just get choked out on this episode too.
Let's see.
Let's do it. So how do you navigate that, being a mom, either in training or just as a career and what you do? Is it just like anybody else?
A lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
A lot of delegating.
Yeah.
Need a lot of help. They say it takes a village, right? And then saying to raise a kid, it's so true. And especially when you've got, career that kind of demands a little bit more of you as a mom away from the home. I think as I move through this more and more, I want to be more of a stay-at-home mom, because it's just the most fulfilling and most important job I think I've ever had, raising these little people. It's like you create them and then you just want to, you just give them the best, right? So I'm very passionate about that, but there's times when it's like, okay, I got to focus on me. I got a fight coming up. I got to do my best. Got to go to sleep. This last camp, there was a point where my kids were sick and I couldn't afford to get sick because we were 2 weeks out.
Yeah.
And
quarantine action.
I felt so bad because I'm like, I can't snuggle you and sleep with you I normally would do that in a heartbeat. I wouldn't even think about it.
Yeah.
So, but
you've had fights canceled because of COVID, right?
Yeah.
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 That's
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
It's that's just not. It's just such a sensitive time when you're getting ready. Right. You can't do all of it. But, I just try to be present. That is something that I've noticed. Even if it's 5 minutes in the morning, first thing in the morning, kids wake up. Tuck the phone away real quick because we're all on the phone in the morning. Yeah. But I try to tuck it away and just be with them for a few minutes. Give them that time of undivided attention. What do we have that is so important that we can't just give our kids 5 minutes?
Yes.
You matter.
Yes.
You're more important than my phone. I'm gonna give you that attention. And so sometimes it's just those little pockets of time that are undivided, and I try to do that here and there. And I'll okay, you kids, I'll say I turn my kids off when you turn the TV on, right? So turn my kids off for a half an hour, get some things that I need done, and then I'll set a timer, and then I have to hold myself accountable too. Okay, when the timer goes off, I'm going to be a present mom.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do that for 30 minutes, and then we'll go from there. And so it's just these little chunks of time that I try to really be dedicated with, but there's no, exact way to do it, and it's not easy. And sometimes I find myself being that 30-minute timer's about to go off, and I'm like, 5 more minutes, got a little bit more to do.
Is that a snooze?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm interested to know from your perspective, because I've been navigating this a little bit with my 3-year-old, is how to teach him to stand up and defend himself. If someone were to strike him or someone were to bully him, I'm navigating that right now. I wonder what your perspective.
He's getting bullied in what?
No, he might, a kid might hit him or something like that in daycare.
You're just thinking ahead.
What's that?
You're thinking ahead.
I'm thinking ahead because, it's going to happen. But then also there's been, instances where, he tells me that someone hit him in school.
Oh, wow.
Or in daycare. So it's okay, well, you need to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is the advice hit him back? Right? Is the advice run and tell the teacher? Which I think maybe my wife would... be more supportive. that's what I'm navigating right now. What do you think?
So I think when children are younger and they lack the discernment to be able to tell what is appropriate and what is not an appropriate response, like hitting in the first place wasn't an appropriate response. I think they need to lean on trusted adults to help model how you handle a situation like that. So at a really young age, I would say you gotta like children need adults or they essentially they die. Like we're essential to their survival. So they need to lean on it, and they need to, like, that teacher or that parent, I think, to show them, hey, this is what we do. Like we use our words. That's first. It should be a first thing, right? Come and tell me. Let me support you through this. Let me show you how to handle that. But then I think as they get older, and they could make more of that decision making, they're more capable as they have developed brains. Then it's like that learning process of like, when is somebody crossing a line that I need to actually physically defend myself, or I need to push back. And I think I will always support my children in making those decisions, but I think it's like, age development appropriate.
Yeah, I want to make them capable.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? And
absolutely.
a kid being dangerous is okay, but
yes,
he needs to know when he needs to be dangerous
I'm an
versus
advocate
when
of
not.
like kids doing dangerous things safely.
Yeah.
I let my kids do things that most people would be like, they want to avoid everything. Like that's like an avoidance strategy these days. A lot of parents want to avoid germs. They want to avoid sick. They want to avoid the sun. They want to avoid this. They want, everything.
Yeah.
I'm like,
the lawnmower culture. They're
the
just cutting down. Even worse though is they're cutting down all obstacles, all possible threats, so that kid can go out on the turf and not hurt themselves.
Not hurt themselves.
But they
but
need
there's
to
value in
have
hurting
threat
themselves.
and
Oh yeah, because you learn the most when you hurt yourself or when you fail.
Right.
I mean, I think you guys probably know a little bit about myelin, right?
Yep.
Laying that down in the brain and really teaching yourself. What we lay that down the best. What I understand, anyways, when I read, what was it? It was a book that talked all about it. Talent Code. And it was really interesting learning about myelin and why athletes do what we do repetitively over and over and over again, and how important failure is to actually learning to do it right. Because when we fail, it cues our brain right away to, hey, that wasn't right. Now you have a more clear direction of what is right.
If you get that feedback in the moment,
that's it.
Right.
Yeah. So it's really important that our kids fall down so that they learn how to balance better, or what things are gonna cause me to fall. Like, let me assess it. So instead of like, and I'm not a parenting expert, but this is just, I'm passionate about it. It's like I said, the most important thing. So take it with a grain of salt. But for me, I tell my kids, instead of be careful, it's like, do you feel like you have good footing there? Like, what do you think about this? And I try to get them to, think about it for themselves, because I'm not in their body, and truly they're developing all the time. I'm not always exactly sure what they're now capable of, and sometimes they surprise the hell out of me. It's like, what? I did not think you were going to do all those monkey bars, or I did not think you were going to be able to walk. It's like, I could have held them back if I was like, don't do that. Be careful. It's like, no, I mean, take the risk, but I'm going to try to help you take into account like all the things, make sure you're looking, make sure you've got a good grip, make sure everything's
kind of brain development, thinking about myelin efficiency, plasticity, learning, all these things. In fact, when the brain is in development in those early years, it has many more connections, way too many connections. And so there's all kinds of options for behaviors and pathways and strategies that the individual developing could use, and pruning those connections down to the most efficient, safest, most effective pathway is what they're using us for. They're using failure for. They're using these experiences for. And so as they're out there navigating the world, with our eyes behind them, if they don't get that feedback because they're never allowed to, then they're not able to make those pathways more definitive and efficient.
I love how you use that. I'm going to take that, the pruning. So true. And you prune a tree back, you kind of give it less options, and then it grows more vibrantly in the places it flourishes.
Exactly.
That's a great way to. I got that image in my head now. It's not going away.
You're clearly passionate about being a mother, and I think that's absolutely incredible. But I'm going to read a quote from you from a long time ago.
Okay.
Becoming a champion means more to me than anything, more than a rematch, more than anything. That's something that when I'm 80 years old someday and I have kids and grandkids, I can look back and say, look, this is what I did. This is my accomplishment. What do you think about that, looking back on that quote?
I think that it doesn't hold as much value as it did when I said it,
Mm-hmm.
which is really interesting because that was very heartfelt and it was very serious, to be a world champion. But doesn't mean that it, wasn't a huge accomplishment. And I look back on it with, an affinity. I look back at it and say that was, I'm proud of myself. I did all these great things, but I wasn't a mom yet. And I didn't know how great that would be. Like that's by far like the biggest and best accomplishment I could have ever done. So it's interesting to hear those words back. I remember saying that, and I remember that just being everything. But my identity was really tied into fighting. So being a champion was very much a make or break type of scenario for me that I had created. And I thought that all the problems that I had, any bouts of depression or any complicated things, I thought that if I reached the peak of Mount Everest, if I became a world champion, that's the reason, that I would be happy. And the reason that I wasn't yet was because I wasn't a world champion, right? And so I was really, like a heat-seeking missile trying to find that place that was going to fix the things that were broken. But the truth is, when I became a world champion, it didn't fix anything. Just made it worse.
When did that realization happen? So, must have felt great becoming a world champion.
Oh, it feels, yeah, it's great in the moment. It's like, a major dopamine hit. But it's only maybe a couple of weeks, if you're lucky, where you kind of get to ride that high. And then, the sport, it's such a quick memory. There's fights every week, right? So after like 2 weeks, the media's not really talking to you anymore. And you're kind of just like, okay, now what? And you're like, oh man, all those skeletons and everything you've been tucking down deep still wants to come out. It's like this shiny gold belt didn't really deflect any of that. I guess I have to do some work, and doesn't have anything to do with the belt. It's just, work on yourself.
This Olympic champion, Aaron Cafaro, a member of our clinical group, talks about the hill, coming down off the hill and off the podium. And the Olympics is the steepest decline she's ever had to walk down. And she, after winning the gold in rowing, gets back to her hometown a couple weeks later, and fans are seeing her and coming up to her and saying, well, "What are you doing now? What's next?" And she said, "I'm doing my laundry." I'm just being a normal person, which to her was so, I think, disappointing in a way.
Yeah. Have you guys ever watched the documentary The Weight of Gold?
Weight of Gold, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good one, and it's so true. I think I was very relatable what a lot of athletes go through when they reach the top, or even if they never reach the top. I think the only difference is if you reach that number one spot, for sure that it's not the answer. If you never reach it, maybe you think, well, if I would have, then it would have been the answer. That's really the only difference. But once you see behind the curtains and you realize that it doesn't fix you. It's great to have goals. I think, the mindset that goes with an athlete is, I think it's necessary to have that kind of hyper focus and drive, or at least I haven't necessarily figured out a better way. But at the same time, it can just rob you of the real life that's meant to be lived.
Well, I've heard you say recently in interviews that you were outcome focused back then, and now you're efforts focused.
Yeah.
Maybe you can unpack that a little bit and just tell us what you meant by that.
Yeah. So my entire value and worth was tied into one single outcome on one single night. And if I won, then I was a winner. That was great, and all was good with the world. And if I lost, then I was a loser, and I sucked, and the world sucked, and life sucked, and everything sucked. And it's just not healthy or productive to tie who you are and the way you identify with yourself and how you care about yourself and others into that one night. It's 15 minutes or less. And I just didn't know how else to value myself, though. I'd built my entire value system on performance. I didn't really know how to value myself outside of that single performance. So, I mean, even in my trainings, if I had a bad sparring, it would ruin my day. It would ruin a couple days. It would just be terrible. So I didn't know how to grade myself on anything else but performance. And then I realized that there's so much more to life, and perhaps a better, healthier approach that's more productive is to focus on the journey, the effort that you put into something. Because sometimes you put everything that you have into something and it just doesn't go your way. And that happens all the time in life. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with it when you put everything that you have into something and it doesn't work out? It's like, what do you do? Well, I think the more comfortable you can get with that whole process, the more you can, find success. And you're not so afraid to kind of jump in with both feet and just go for this, go for that. I talk sometimes about the metaphorical home. The first home you build, which is kind of symbolizes, your foundation in life. As a kid, might be made out of popsicle sticks, right? Yeah. And then every time you break that house, or you need to build a new house, whenever that house burns down, you're going to learn how to do it better. You're going to build it out of better materials. And then eventually you're going to be like, I already know how to build it really well, but let me customize it to what my needs, desires, and wants are in life. I mean, how many homes have you guys gone through and you'd be like, I like the kitchen about this house. And even when I, visited this person and I remember that they had this special setup and the way that their doors, French doors, outside, this, that, the deck. I mean, you get all this feedback and opportunity to grow through life. And I think that people who hold on to that first home because they just don't believe that they have the skills to build it again, it's like such a disservice.
Sounds a little bit like finding the right partner. You try to mix and match the goods and the bads.
Yes.
It is a vulnerable and frightening thing to venture out to find somebody that really does truly match.
Absolutely. And so once I learned that I am capable of building it again and again and again and again through lots of failure, I started to get really comfortable with failure and say, look, failure doesn't define me. Still wake up. I'm still Miesha Tate, and my family definitely brought a lot of security to me. I've still got these little beautiful kids that think the world of me. They think I'm cool with or without a black eye. Like, they love me the same. My parents, my friends, my family, when you have a good group of people, it's they're ride or die. They're with you any which way. And I started to realize that there's just so much more that I could do to value myself than just base it on one outcome. It's just so short-sighted. And I realized, I'm gonna fail. So let's bring it on. Like, let's do it, and let's do it great, and let's fail big, and then let's continue to move through that and see what kind of successes we can build off of the failure.
When I heard you say the effort focus, more recently in your career, it made me think about the fact that you had to, and you can tell me if this is true, but accomplish something. You had to get to the top to be comfortable and at peace with, an effort focus, a journey focus. It's like only people, one argument could be only people who have actually become world champion can say things like that because they did it already. But all of the next generation coming up, they're saying, no, F that. I don't want to enjoy the journey. I want to get to the top, and then maybe I'll enjoy it. So how do you come back?
Yeah, I would say you're going to be disappointed.
No.
You're going to be disappointed because the answer isn't in any destination. It really is in the journey. It really boils down to unpacking the things that you need to, moving through your emotions, and learning to be a good friend to yourself, to be your own best friend. Like, what does that internal voice sound like? Is it mean? Is it like, what kind of friend are you to yourself? Because if you're there talking negatively to yourself, you're just wiring yourself to believe in that negativity. And there's just reframing. Listen to that. Like, don't just tuck it away. Like, listen to the way you speak to yourself. And then if you realize are we allowed to cuss?
Yeah,
this?
Sure.
Yes.
Oh, a little bit. Okay. Well, if you're being an asshole to yourself, like, acknowledge it and be like, okay, what can I do better? What can I do better? How can I speak to myself better? And there's a reframe. Just do it again. I do that with my kids sometimes. Like, hey, try that again. Like, you didn't speak to me in a way that I really like. Let's do that again.
Do you think that having a family impacted or has impacted your performance in any sort of way? Now, let me read you another quote from, not from you, but from someone else. He's an F1 driver. His name's Fernando Alonso. And it was after, in 2005, at the Japanese Grand Prix, he overtakes Michael Schumacher, who's like a super good F1 driver, around the corner, and he like almost caused a crash. But then he was asked about it, and Fernando Alonso, who doesn't have a family, says about Michael, I knew he'd hit the brakes. He has a wife and 2 kids at home. Considering that, do you feel that you've ever hit the brakes?
Oh, that is really interesting. So, one was like, I'm willing to risk it all because this is my everything. And,
right. He's a young buck, hungry.
Yeah. That
right?
is really fascinating.
He's okay with having an accident.
I mean, there are certainly differences. I look at getting in and out of the octagon safely. I put more of a priority on that now. I'm not willing to just take a shot to give a shot. I'm going to try to be better and more strategic. I fought a lot of my early career, and it would always come out just like bloody mess, and I'd have these wars on my hands, and it was just like, not necessarily strategic. I would just go out there and try to just bludgeon my way through the fight and just make it happen. And now I'm like, I think I could do that a lot better. I think I could be smarter. And so I do. I mean, my priorities have shifted, and for the most part, I've been pretty successful since having kids. And minus one fight, I got a good little laceration and, banged up my nose a little bit, and we had some blood, but otherwise was healthy. Haven't received any knockouts or anything like that. But yes, my children are certainly my priority. And it does shift a little bit the way that you do things, but I'm so much happier, right? I'm just more complete. I don't have the weight of the world in that singular outcome. And so, for the give and the take, I still think that it makes me more dangerous because I'm not as
rigid.
Yes, I'm not as rigid. I'm more in a flow state. I'm more comfortable and out there with an idea of what I really want out of that moment. I think I know how to be present now, and I didn't know how to do that even when I was fighting before. And sometimes, fighting forces you to be present, but you still don't always know what you want out of that moment if you haven't practiced being present. You're just kind of like there because the circumstance forces it. Now it's like I focus on what do I want out of this moment and how do I make that happen. That's just something that's changed since I've had kids.
Well, I'm glad you said it increases your performance, at least from your perspective. It makes you more dangerous because the argument from the young buck is like, look, if I'm enjoying the journey, that's not going to make me more effective. That's not going to make me perform better. It's not going to make me more dangerous. I need to focus on the outcome only. And I think there's an argument for both, right? You got to focus on the top of the mountain. You got to focus on the journey. But Tal Ben-Shahar, who wrote the book Happier, he's a Harvard positive psychologist, said it's not just the top of the mountain. It's not just the journey. It's the journey to the top. Because you can get lost on a journey. If you're just enjoying life, in an RV, riding around the country. But if you're on a journey to the top, now that focuses all the energy.
That's so true. And everyone's Mount Everest is going to look different, and everybody's top, like what is that you want out of life? For me, when I look at this picture and I say, well, that was my Mount Everest at that point in my life, being a world champion, and people can look at that and say, they can champion it, and they can understand it, and they can physically see it, it's tangible. But I mean, there's just like one short-sighted aspect of like my life that took a hyper dedication, and I missed weddings and funerals and Christmases and Thanksgivings and all kinds of things just so that I could do that. But at the end of the day, it was just like a blip in my life, like a little drop in the bucket. So it's like so much time and energy invested into something like that, and it's great and everything, but not everybody needs to pick to be a UFC world champion or be an Olympic gold medalist to have a very notable or worthy Mount Everest. I think every person, a parent, whether you're climbing the rankings through your job or you're going to own your own company, like whatever that is for you, it just seek better. Seek better.
Better brain, baby.
Yeah, definitely. So I watched your fight recently with Ronda Rousey, the second time you guys met.
You recently saw the fight that was a long time ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for clearing that up.
Maybe he rewatched it.
Yeah, I rewatched it. But that was
after being there live the first time.
Right.
That was a super, like, a bloody fight, and it was like such a battle. And you guys had, seemed like it, some animosity going into that fight. I do wonder what your relationship was between yourself and the opponent back then versus what is it now? How do you think of your opponent now versus how you did back then? Has that changed at all?
Yeah. Even when I think about Ronda, it's changed. I didn't know how to love myself, so I didn't know how to, necessarily like have love for, somebody that I was gonna like try to beat on the other side of the cage. But now it's just different. I look at life differently. And, I've had one deep journey with psilocybin, and that forever changed my life.
Wow.
One deep journey, and I said, wow. I really became so much more empathetic. I felt way more connected to all the energy around me, life energy, whatever you want to call it. And I feel like people are less degrees removed from me now. So it's like, I used to see kids and be like, kids, like I don't care about kids. I didn't even think I wanted kids. And I have my kids, and after I have my kids, I go on this deep journey, and I'm like, man, my life is it's so different than it used to be.
Wow.
And now, I have like this love for other people's kids, and it's just like I don't see them as very far removed from my children. It's like children are just children. It's like I don't know how to explain that. And so same thing with my opponents, and even same thing for Ronda. We all are the way that we are based on past experiences. We all have our traumas and, things we have to move through. And so I look at her and say, she was hard, and she was, she wasn't the friendliest person, and we got off the wrong foot. But honestly, I was just forgiven all of that stuff. I know that, she lost her dad at a young age, and she had hard things in her life that, again, attribute you to who you are. And so instead of meeting animosity with animosity, I think now I meet that with empathy. I say, like, I might not understand everything you've gone through, but I'm sure there's a reason why you're having a bad day today, or, there's a reason why you are. Doesn't mean that I have to put up with it, or, just be, underneath someone's thumb my whole life. Yeah. But it's freeing. It's really freeing to just be able to be like, hey, that person that's, has road rage that's behind you and wants you to go faster and, whatever. You're just like, man, they haven't figured it out yet. Yeah. Like, it's not that serious. Like, you don't have to be upset when you drive. Like, just chill out. Like, life is good. It's beautiful. Especially. And no matter how it works out, even when it's really hard, it's all perfect. Yeah.
How do you pair that with your job being beating the crap out of somebody? Like, that mentality, like, how do you pair that? Like, for me, it's easy. I'm a doctor, right? Like, it's easy because, I like to think that I help people, but for you, it's like your job is to,
inflict,
asphyxiate somebody.
Well, I think I'm helping them too. I guess that's the difference. Most people think that I'm there to hurt them, but I think I'm there to help them, because if I'm not there, they don't get to do what they work hard for. It's a mutual effort. Usually there's so much respect. That person has trained so hard for you, and you better show up and do the same thing for them, because it takes two to elevate, right? I mean, if you both show up like bums, it's not going to be good, right? How do you make yourself better if somebody doesn't show up to make you better, right? So it's like, I feel like I have so much respect for my opponents, and they want an opportunity to showcase how great they are, and I'm there to provide it. I'm also there to take it, but it's a mutual respect, and it's a mutual goal, and only one gets to walk away the winner. But you're still grateful either way that person showed up, so that you had a chance to show the world how great you both are. Yeah.
And if you look back, you and Ronda in Strikeforce, how successful that was the reason that Dana cited for women fighting in the UFC.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
It's
so
incredible.
I mean, even though we were rivals and foes, and we never to this day have gotten along, but we helped each other.
Yeah.
You view it, as I've heard you talk about it, as more of a storyline, an evolution of this arc, of these two characters who clashed and brought out the popularity in the sport and pioneered this sport for not only females, but I think for people in general to become fans and to join it.
And the reason that Dana didn't want women's fighting in the UFC was because the first fight that he ever watched, sometime prior to Ronda and I, was very one-sided. One girl went out there and absolutely smashed this other girl, and he was just like, this is he doesn't like mismatches. He's like, there's not enough depth. There's going to be way too many mismatches, and this was just left a terrible taste in his mouth. So it wasn't until, Ronda and I are there, we're fighting for a title, and people are starting to care about it. We have this rivalry going, and then it was a great fight. It was very, fun and competitive up until the point when, she took my arm and bent it backwards. But we showed that there could be fights that were competitive, and it took two great athletes to go out there and essentially help each other elevate the sport.
I just wanted to, let me rephrase that. I wanted to come back to parenting, because there's something cool that you said that actually I think speaks to your origin story. Just thinking about parenting from your perspective, you've also talked about having a strong masculine figure in the home, and how maybe that wasn't there early on for you, and how that might have in some way led to your seeking out of wrestling and things like that. Just walk us through what was there.
Yeah, so I think I had some sort of abandonment issues, if you will, that I had to work through for sure, and I wasn't aware of it for a long time. But kids automatically assume that everything is their fault, and I think I just thought maybe I'm not lovable, or I'm not worthy of that strong male figure love in my life. So my biological father wasn't there. I didn't find out who he was until it was about 5. He was on the road, and he was a musician, and I didn't even know about him until I was 5, because he was just they didn't have cell phones back there. So they wrote a letter. I still remember I got this letter in the mail, and my mom, everyone told her, like, don't he chose not to be part of her life. That's what people were saying, and don't tell her, like, she doesn't need to know. He hasn't been a part of her life. She's 5. And my mom went against that and said, you know what, I think even though she's 5, she deserves to know. So I get this Christmas card, and I'm looking at this black and white picture of my father, who I didn't know existed before this, and he has like long hair, and a really handsome guy, by the way. My dad was a good looking guy back in the day. And I'm like, oh, okay, so, there's that. And then, my stepdad was there for the first few years of my life, and I was really bonded to. Like, my mom was the breadwinner. She would work a lot. I was bonded to my mom too, but, and they just didn't end up working out. But I was like 3. It was like from 0 to 3,
wow.
right? Okay. And so then he gets married and he leaves, and it was like the most devastating thing ever in my life. They get married, and he tells me he's moving away, and I'm just like, he's my everything, is my world. So I'm bawling. I'll lose it. And, he's gone. And then, my father, who raised me from, around that time on, has been in my life, since then. But we had a real tough time between like 13 and 16, where I don't know if we said 2 words to each other, it felt like, in those 3 years.
Wow.
It was rough. And he just didn't understand me. I didn't understand him. He has his own, again, we go back to like, traumas through families. He had a really tough upbringing. His dad was, not good. And, he was trying to do better. He didn't have the skills. Like, none of us, we didn't have the stuff that we have today. And so I don't hold any grudge or anything against him. But point in case is, again, I'm feeling like, okay, this is like a 3rd time in my life that this male figure is rejecting me in some way. And I'm just, I'm a young girl. I was like, it hurt. It hurt a lot. And so, I go off to college, and I'm just looking for security. So I find myself in let me say one more thing to finalize that is I was dating a guy named Apollo, and he had like a lot of suicidal ideations and tendencies and whatnot, and he ended up taking his life. While we were dating.
Wow.
And that was
How do you not blame yourself or think it's somehow related?
It was really hard not to, at 19 years old, you just there's another, male figure in your life that you just couldn't hold on to or didn't want to, and it wasn't personal. It wasn't me. It was, it's just sad that sometimes people aren't able to work through those things. So I had to deal with that as well. And then, I found myself in a really toxic relationship for 9 years, but I was just like so needed to be needed, and find safety in somebody that wasn't gonna, abandon me or reject me, that I stayed in a far less than ideal situation for a very, very long time. Just kind of like needing that. And, so yeah, did that answer your question? I'm not sure what the question
I'm curious,
started with.
along the way, how did that drive you to these male-oriented sports?
Yes, that was okay. So I think what happened, when they say, what is that saying? Strong men create weak times. Is that where it starts? Weak men create strong. Weak men create weak times. Strong men create strong. And then it's like goes through that cycle. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
What's that saying?
I
How's
do.
it go?
Jason, do you know what he's on? Jason's nodding his head.
Yeah, strong men create easy times.
Yeah.
Weak men create hard times.
Something like that. But there's like this cycle
It's a
that
cycle.
goes to
It's
it.
like,
Yeah.
you're Googling it?
Yeah.
Strong men
Okay.
make good times.
Yes.
Good times make weak men.
Yeah, there we go.
Weak men make hard times.
Okay.
And hard times make strong men.
Okay, so there's always this like cycle to all of that, right? So in my life, I think what kind of happened is a similar cycle, but I became, because of the, I don't want to call the men in my life weak men. That's not fair. That's not what I'm exactly trying to say. But because I was like, I felt an absence of it, it created hard times for me, and those hard times made me become like
Stronger.
the strong. But so I think I started to try to become what I was missing. So I started to lean more into my masculine energy than my feminine energy, because my feminine energy was there as a child, it was just hurt. It was weak to me, and it didn't help me, and I was just like, it's just feelings. And so I think I'm just going to become this a bit hardened, and I'm going to be what I don't have. I'm going to become what I'm not secure in. And
did you get in fights at school?
No, I didn't get in fights in school. I was a pretty mellow person for the most part, but I absolutely thrived when I went out for wrestling in high school, and it was just the hardest thing I'd ever done. And they absolutely kicked my butt. I mean, they didn't want me there, so they tried to make it really hard. They tried to get me out of there, and I was like a glutton for the punishment. And I was like, this is the kind of energy that I'm missing in my life. This strong male, like masculine, like you just walk into a wrestling room, it's like very masculine. And so there was something about that really drew me towards wanting to do it.
Now, you were wrestling all boys, right?
Yeah.
All men.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So it was a all-male wrestling team. Besides my friend Sharon, it was actually her idea to go out for wrestling. So her and I were the only ones that were on the team. But yeah, they didn't have a women's wrestling team, and it was very sparse when we got an opportunity to compete against another female who was doing the same thing, wrestling, being the only girl on a wrestling team somewhere in the state of Washington, So, I think that's, I guess that's why. And I always wanted to give my mom the security that I felt like she was missing too. I think, it's like the oldest boy syndrome, but I just wasn't a boy.
So then when does a transition to MMA happen?
When I went to college, I stumbled across this mixed martial arts club sport. My roommate, Rosalia, I still remember her standing in her little karate suit, just like, and I was like, she's like, you should come to, it's like funny because I feel like when you wear those, like your arms have to stay out like this. And it's like funny, you have to have this like stance because they're not comfortable at all. And she's like, do you want to come? And I was like, looking at her, I was like, you're not getting me in that. Yeah, I was like, you're not getting me on that. She's like, no, you don't have to wear that. Just come. Like most of these guys wrestled. And so I said no a couple times. And then she was like, you should come, really. And I was like, okay, fine. And I went, and my first day I learned how to choke people. I was hooked.
The rest was history?
Yeah,
What
I was
is it
hooked.
about that?
What was that?
What is it about the choke or the submission?
I think it just fed right into what was thrilling to me about wrestling. It's just kind of this conquering strength and capable. I'm capable with my own hands, that I can protect myself. I could protect my mom. And, I don't think those were conscious thoughts. Yeah. But I look back on it now and I say, why would I do that? It's like, you asked, did I get in fights? Like, I was not an aggressive person. I wasn't. I was not a prideful person. I wasn't. And I didn't have a terrible childhood by any means. I've elaborated on some of the things that were difficult for me, but my mom loved me and all of us. And, we didn't grow up wealthy. My mom always sacrificed for us, everything. She sacrificed everything. She'd work 2 jobs. She'd have holes in her shoes so we could have new shoes to go to school. Like, she was a phenomenal mom. But, so I always wanted better for her. And, I think when I went out for the sport of wrestling and then I found the sport of MMA, it just made me feel alive. And I think it made me feel like the missing pieces that I had in my life. Like, there was an answer somewhere in that for me. And so I just was, like a moth to a flame. I just wanted to do it.
Why not striking? Was that ever like kind of an option, or was it always just choking someone out?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I thought of fighting as violent and angry. I was like, well, I'm neither of those. I'm not violent and I'm not angry. And so I don't need to do that. That would be ridiculous. I don't want to punch anybody and I don't want to get punched. Like, why would anybody want to do that? I just had this like very close-minded concept of what the sport was. And, my dad swears that we watched, the UFC and that he had it on. And I was like, well, I don't remember any of that. So clearly I didn't care. You probably had it on like football in the background. And I was just like, whatever. So it was not at all on my radar. I was like, why would I want to do that? Like, why would I want to hurt somebody and fight? I'm not an angry person. And then I went and watched an amateur event, and I had been doing a little bit of jiu-jitsu by then. I knew what a rear naked choke was. I knew what an armbar was. I knew what a triangle choke was. That was about it. But I was like, hey, that's a nice add-on to wrestling. No, I don't want to fight. Absolutely not. I'll never do it. And then I went and watched the fights, and I was like, I was just like blown away. I was like, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. It wasn't at all what I thought. I guess I was thinking, what everyone says about the sports. It's like these toothless, barbaric, uneducated bar brawlers that have nothing else going for them. They're just a bunch of angry, drunk men. It's like, that's kind of what I thought fighting was about. And I was like, no, that is not what it is about. It is an art. It is a craft. It's like playing chess with your bodies. It's very strategic. And their whole heart and soul was like right there on display for the world to see. And I was just taken back, and I thought, oh, like I could do that.
What does that actually feel like? Like when you get someone's back and you're squeezing on their throat and you're choking them out, like walk us through that. Like what's that feel like?
It feels like it's like such a culminating moment where there's, you've thought about that and you've dreamed about it and you've envisioned it and you've wanted to be there in that moment, and then it's almost surreal and you're there and you got your arms wrapped around someone's neck, and as you're squeezing, your senses are very heightened. So you hear everything, but you hear nothing. So, like the crowd gets silent, but the breathing is allowed. So you're focusing on that because it's like you're in the hunt and you're about to get the kill. It's like all the senses, your smell, your sight, your hearing, and so as you're choking someone, I usually hear the breath stop. I hear it just like leaving them, and then it's like done, and then you've got it, and it's just a very it's a very present moment.
Yeah, I've heard you say time slows down. There's different ways I think you can put people to sleep, right? You can cut off their carotid, their blood supply.
Right.
You could cut off their trachea, their air supply. What usually happens in these chokeholds?
Both. Both. If you do it good, it's both. Yeah. So some people can hold out without oxygen a little bit longer, because some people are really tough, but nobody can hold out longer on a blood choke. So once you get that locked in, it's 6 seconds at most before someone's asleep.
Wow.
Yeah, cut off that good blood supply to the brain and shuts right off.
Yeah.
And just to give perspective, when we say cut off blood supply, it's some 4 minutes or something like that that would cause some permanent brain damage. So we're very south of that number when we're talking about 8 seconds.
Yeah,
Right.
6 seconds. And then maybe another 1 or 2 for the ref to hop in. So yeah, maybe he might be around there if they don't tap. I mean, usually they have the option to tap. Like when you're caught in a choke, most people will tap. But as you see this picture here, Holly did not.
Holly
She's
Holm
a
did
savage.
not. Yeah.
She did. She tapped though.
No, she didn't.
No, she didn't.
Went
She went out on her shield.
Yeah.
No.
Should we watch it?
Let's watch
Yeah.
it and see.
Oh, we got video here. Okay. All right. Let's go.
Can you walk us through it as you're, if you remember what you were thinking and what the strategy
Yeah,
was?
absolutely. Well, this was the 5th round, and I was potentially down 3 rounds, so I knew I had to get it done. So I went in for a shot, and it was very desperate. And then she was almost getting up, and I was like, I pulled her back, and I climbed on top of her, and I was just trying to be like a weight, like think of like throwing an anchor off of a ship. Like I'm just trying to weigh her down. And I remember,
Do you have it there? You
yeah,
feel you got
almost
it there?
right there. Now I have it. But okay, now you'll see when I start to actually squeeze there. That's when I've really got the choke, and she's not going to get out. Before that, there was a little wiggle room. Yeah, and she's asleep.
So she tried to flip you off
She tried to
of her.
flip me off of her because it was in so deep at that point that she figured she might as well try anything to get me to let go of the neck. So let's see here.
Did you hear her air?
Motion.
Did you hear her wheeze or what?
Yeah. It was just like silence. It's just like a good sound. I mean, there's just the breathing is allowed when you're fighting. Everyone's, breathing through their mouths and then you've got it when you don't hear anything anymore. So let's see, about there I would say. Yep. So she tries 3, 4. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So do you think that flip allowed you to gain more leverage on her thighs to pull back on them?
Yep. As she flips me over, that doesn't bother me at all.
Right.
I'm so used to being inverted and upside down and all kinds of positions in grappling that I've got, I think, pretty good proprioception and awareness.
So that's not a tap there?
No, she's actually already out. So I think what happens when it's like a REM. I think it's like a REM state when she was like in a dream state almost.
I think you might be referring to possible like decerebrate posturing or decorticate posturing.
But she threw it like punches.
It did look more like punches.
Like right before she went out. And I've had this happen too where you kind of have this little bit of lapse in what's going on and like what's reality. There's like this little transition time where you're not really sure anymore and just kind of like being caught in a dream state or like when you first wake up and you're not sure if the dream was real or not. Yeah, it's like that for like 1 second there. And so I think in her mind, because she was so violently fighting to get out of this, like right before she fell asleep, she probably was out of it in her mind and she was throwing punches back at me. Like that's what she wanted to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
That's
How'd
my
that
guess
feel
anyways.
afterwards when you won?
In that moment in time, it was the absolute best thing that could have ever happened to me, until it wasn't. And so I was like, oh man, it didn't fix anything. But it was great in that moment. I mean, I worked really hard for that and I will never, I'll never be disappointed in that moment. I worked really hard for it.
Yeah.
But now I look at it and say, like, I could have done that whole process a lot better. And I think I could have been the champion a lot longer, right? If I had known what I know now. I think I could have been a more balanced person because I was burning the candle at both ends and the middle.
Well, you talked about that not being the peak, but actually on your way down.
Yeah.
So what did you mean by that? Where were you at in your career?
I think I had already exhausted myself to the point where I was actually already beginning to decline mentally and physically, like led by the mental and emotional drain, which is just only so much, only so long that you can burn the candle like that before the flames out. And so I think I was already beyond the point of I just had exerted too much on myself. I was the 9 years into that, a toxic relationship. I'd compartmentalized my whole life. I had dealt with nothing, and it was like trying to hold a beach ball under the water. Just like, and eventually I was just so exhausted that it's just like all, and so it was just like I was already losing myself in all of this. I was already emotionally unavailable, you know?
Yeah, it must have been disappointing when you realized that winning didn't resolve a lot of those issues, and that probably
But it was the
exhausted you
best
more.
thing that could happen to me because it really woke me up.
Yeah.
Well, it took a little time. I wasn't quite there yet.
Mhm.
I still was like, you know, still under this idea that if anything was wrong, I just needed to fight again.
Mhm.
And that would fix it,
Mm.
you know? But it's like such a temporary, it's like a Band-Aid, you
Yeah.
know? So I was like, I started to get really depressed again. I was like, I need to fight again. Then I fought and I lost. And then I lost my belt and I was absolutely devastated. And then I was like, I need to fight again. So then I fought again and I lost. And it was the weirdest fight of my life. It was like I had an out-of-body experience in that I was so not present that I don't even remember. I don't remember fight week. I don't remember none of it.
Which one was that one?
That was the one where I fought Raquel Pennington.
Okay.
That was my retirement fight. And I was like, I retired because I was like, I never want to feel like that again.
Mm-hmm.
How do you not be present when someone's like trying to take your head off?
What do you think that was?
It was just a culmination of all the things breaking. It was just too much. You know, it was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Mm.
Yeah.
So then you retired.
Yeah.
And then you went on to one?
Yeah.
Is that when you went on to one?
Exactly.
And what was that like, being on that, like, for that perspective of things in terms of the fighting community?
Oh, it was really interesting, you know, seeing the other side of the sport and how it all works and the athletes and, you know, not being an athlete myself, but, you know, talking to them. And I was always really an advocate of putting them first. And I think what I really liked about one is that they would always ask me like, well, you know, what do you think about interviewing them, right before they walk out? I'm like, no, we don't do
Leave them alone.
Yeah, leave them alone. Like they got to
yeah.
get in their mindset. We can't do that, you guys.
Yeah.
But, you know, being on the other side of it was interesting, you know, and it also made me miss the sport a little bit though. And I think COVID too, when COVID happened and I was living in Singapore.
Oh, wow.
And I was pregnant with my second child. And over there, they were much more strict than here. They even had little ambassadors that would walk around and like ticket you if you weren't wearing a mask and stuff. It was so crazy. And, you know, when you're like 8 months pregnant and you have a mask on and the humidity is like 120% and it's, you know, 89 degrees outside, you just like feel you're going to die.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
So I was like, I got to get out of here. I don't like this. I got to go back to the U.S. And that's kind of what brought me back. But when the whole world shut down, that's when I finally realized I needed to fight again. I realized I had unfinished business there. And I think if, you know, again, these things that happen to us that we think are our roadblocks, really I think are just there to guide us on the way we're supposed to be. If we don't hold on to that first house, you know, we just let it burn down and be like, I'm going to build it again. Usually I think we find ourselves on the right side of things.
Yeah. You mentioned one was putting fighters first. Do you think the UFC does?
I mean, I think every organization is a mixture, you know. I don't think that there's one that maybe does it better than another, but what I will say is that I feel like Dana is a real person, and you love him or you hate him, you know. Like we've been on both sides, and we have a good relationship, you know. But you know, there's been times when I'm like, I just don't, you know, I don't like him. Like he's an asshole or whatever. But you know, he shoots it straight.
You know what you're getting.
That's what, you know,
Yeah.
I just like it when I know what I'm getting and you shoot it straight. Like, even if I don't like what you're saying or I don't like what you're telling me, you know. I remember one time when I won my title, was it right before, maybe we were renegotiating, and, you know, he was like, you know, basically he's like, you're not Rhonda. And he was just like such a jerk about it. And I was like, yeah, no kidding. I know my name's spelled different, whatever, but I was 50% of that. Do you remember? You know?
Yeah.
But you know what? He just shoots it straight. And I was like, yeah, and he's right. And, you know, I'm not, and I don't want to be.
Yeah.
Now looking back.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that was when we were renegotiating contracts.
Yeah, I mean, like, the amount of money that the fighters are making going from, say, Strikeforce or some other league into the UFC, like, you know, it's almost 10x sometimes for some fighters.
Yeah.
You know, so certainly financially, he's doing something for him.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, I own my house like free and clear. You know what I mean? Who can say that? You know, and like what
Not
I mean,
me.
what I'm saying is like, you know, I mean, it's in, and I got an opportunity to do what I love on the biggest platform in the world because of the UFC. Would I like to make more money? Of course, but I mean, everybody I don't think there's a single fighter on the planet, probably not even Connor or Rhonda, who's like, hey, if you could have made more money, would you have liked to? Nobody's gonna be like, no. Of course we all want to make more, but realistically, when do you get an opportunity to just do what you absolutely love and make millions of dollars doing it?
Yeah.
You know, so it's I think it's like, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Very happy.
Yeah. I do wonder in terms of the brain injury piece, though.
I do too.
What do you wonder about?
I wonder, like, if it's going to affect me as I get older. You know, am I gonna be? I think about my grandkids. Am I gonna be safe to watch my grandkids? Am I gonna be trustworthy? Like, are they gonna be afraid that I'm gonna leave a burner on and burn the house down, and, you know, kid's gonna fall in the pool, and I'm just gonna be like doing, you know, like, I worry about that stuff. I definitely do. But that's
Are you seeing signs? Like, what has caused this fear? Just the hype in the media, or is it something that you're experiencing?
I think seeing, you know, former boxing champs, right? And you see sometimes we don't have a lot of MMA fighters that are, you know, as old. I feel like it's a younger sport, so we don't really know.
Yes.
I do think that MMA is overall better on the brain than boxing, because more of what we do is dispersed over the whole body. So there's a lot of wrestling, a lot of clinch work, a lot of things that, you know, more body work, you know, kicks. Obviously you can get kicked in the head too, which isn't great. But I still think overall we probably see less repeated head trauma. And I think sometimes the repeated hits in the head, it's just like, you know, boxing is pretty much just a head hunting sport. So it's over and over and over, that jarring and all the sparring rounds. Sometimes it's the sparring rounds that's the worst part of it, you know?
Right.
But sometimes there'll be whole rounds that I get. It's like I get a takedown early in the round and I don't get hit at all for entire 5 minutes. And it's like, you would never get that in boxing. Even if we're just doing light boxing sparring rounds, you will never get that. You will always be taking some kind of brain trauma. But there are other people in our sport who have had a really hard time, who have, you know, like, I mean, it seems like, you know, BJ Penn is having a really tough time right now. You keep seeing him.
What do you think that's about?
I honestly, I'm not a doctor, and I don't know him that well personally, so I can only speculate like the rest of us. But I imagine he's got CTE. He's got some serious, you know, brain injuries and issues, and I don't know how those things always manifest. I think everybody's different in what they lean into and, you know, what resources they have. And I mean, I think our brains are so, even as much as we know, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's probably, you know, 100 times, thousands of times more than that we don't know.
Yeah.
You know, it's as vast as like the solar system. Right. It's like we barely know anything about the solar system. Right. There's so much more to find out. So I feel like to really try to understand what these people are going through, I mean, we have, you know, research that's great, but we also have a lot of things we don't understand and we don't know. And I just imagine that he's struggling. You know, I think a lot of fighters have, you know. So
yeah, for him in particular, it's interesting because he's demonstrating what I might call capgras syndrome, which is like the delusion that a familiar person has been replaced by an imposter. In this case, his mom has been replaced by somebody that the government has put in her place, which is a hard delusion to muster with a concussive injury or a repeated contact sport history, unless one of those injuries smacked his exact area that recognizes and makes a familiar experience around faces.
Right.
And so you'd have to be really focused. I mean, like a gunshot wound or a specific neurodegenerative condition that hits that it's called the temporal lobe, right in this spot, the face area it's called. Now, it would be hard for me to believe that CTE has brewed there.
Right. And
started to kind of populate and kill neurons and somehow cause this very discrete delusion.
Right. I mean, maybe he was genetically a predisposition for this, and maybe it would have happened if he never fought. We don't really know, but it seems like his awareness of like everything is exacerbated, and it doesn't seem like he's the way that he used to be. And again, maybe it's just because he's famous and we kind of get to follow along his story that we're more aware of it. But obviously people who have never fought before also suffer from this. So it's easy to chalk it up and say, oh, it's because he got hit in the head. I don't know. Yeah. But I you know, there are a few, you know, Phil Baroni, he like shot his girlfriend. He like murdered her. Like shot, and he was like, he's in prison, and You know, then you see like football players too, you know, that fly off the deep end, and we just, I don't understand it, but I always just have concerns of like what we don't know. Like I don't know for sure, but I know that these people have done a lot of contact sports, and I know I've done a lot of contact sports, and I'm like, so how could it potentially manifest? You know, does it make it more likely that I could have dementia, or that I could even just be forgetful, like more forgetful than I would have been by taking head trauma
to lose this prized possession, the thing that makes us who we are, that gels our past experience with our current experience. It is scary, for sure. You know, I think the one thing that drew me to your story and to your experience is how candid and aware and insightful you are about, one, your emotional and mental life through your career, but also when we first met at the CTE and Concussion Conference last year at Irvine, you talked a lot about the locker room understanding, or the rehab gym kind of understanding amongst yours and the next generation of fighters in terms of concussion, CTE. You just kind of use those terms interchangeably, like, yep, you know, I'm forgetting stuff, I got CTE.
Yeah.
Like, talk to us about what is the understanding about these injuries.
Still feel like this, you know, people understand CTE as this kind of broad overview of like a reason why your brain's just not working the way that it used to, and that I think that's what people know about it, and that's really it.
Are people talking about it? Are they afraid of it in the aftermath of a concussive event or a knockout? Is that a concern?
Yeah, it should be. It should be more of a concern, and I think there are these general protocols that, you know, the commission, or, you know, these organizations or whatever has said that you have to do in order to get cleared after something like that. But I don't know. I don't believe that there is as much. I feel like it's more of like a technicality. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Because from what I understand, that an MRI is just like taking a picture of the brain at one still moment in time. So I don't know how that could give us enough information to really say like this person's brain is good or it's bad, or how it was affected differently. And, you know, I used to think, well, an MRI is like the gold standard for your brain, and it's just going to tell you if the brain's good. But I don't know. I'm just a dumb athlete, you know. It's like I don't know these things. And
I mean, it makes sense. You go to a doctor, you get this expensive scan, and
Yeah.
it's like peering through the depths of your
and you see it, and it's like looks like it scans through your whole brain. It's like, wow, you know, and you think you're good, but I think it's really important for us to have these conversations, and I think it shouldn't be a taboo thing. I don't think this should be something that athletes are afraid of. I think we need to look at it like, how can we be preventative, and how can we make sure that we're giving people, fighters, the information so that they can make informed decision? Because I think that's where the biggest issue is that people will say, fighters and fans and many people that I've talked to, well, they knew what they were getting themselves into. Like,
but did you?
Did they?
Right.
Did they?
Right. Do we even know as a science, as a medicine?
Right. And there's just so many questions, you know, and that's, you know, if we were able to say, hey, this is the likeliness in the sport that you do, that you will suffer from this, or this. Would some people make a different decision? Maybe.
Or train different, or spar different, or whatever.
Exactly.
We talked a lot about that at the conference, where it was determined that the best way to train was to get the best look, which meant the hardest, the concrete floor.
Full-on fight.
Right, a full-on fight with the hardest opponent, so that you could be prepared
and not opponent, training partner. Yeah. That's how they would prepare for their opponents. It's like they would just fight each other every day. It's like, you know, nobody knew. Nobody knew. And so, again, it comes...
Is that changing now?
Oh, yeah. People train way smarter. And there are athletes now who are more seasoned, who don't even spar before their fights anymore. It's like, we know how to do that. We don't need to spar. And they supplement otherwise. They'll do like what we call technical sparring, which I'm really big on that too, where I say, let's aim for 10% impact and full speed. So you really focus on being accurate and fast, as opposed to, you know, trying to just blow your partner's head off their shoulders, because there's only so many hits you can take like that in training or in a fight. And I think, you know, the way that we can ensure our longevity in the sport and outside of it is to try to minimize the damage that we take. And most of our time is spent in the rounds in the gym. That's where most of the damage happens, is in the rounds in the gym.
How does that differ from, you know, both in the way that you spar and in the way that you recover when you're talking about an arm bar or some other type of submission hold and a knockout head strike?
I think that most people don't differentiate very much. Most athletes do not differentiate very much, and they don't like to be told that they can't train. Like, the commission will put you on a suspension if you had a really hard fight. I think no matter what, you get a 7-day suspension. But if you had a slugfest, you could be suspended for 6 months. You could be suspended for 30 days.
Really?
However, you can always go to the doctor and get a clearance sooner than that, which a lot of fighters do. But it's like this game that's played. It's like, it's like mom and dad putting you on, on suspension. It's like, when can I get out? Like, how fast can I get out? They don't see it as. They don't look at it as protective, like, oh, maybe my brain needs time to actually heal. This is not the approach. The approach is, I'm being reprimanded, I don't like it, and I just want to get cleared
I'm going to forge my signature and get back to...
Yeah, and the doctors will recommend that you don't, train or spar or whatever, but, most of the fighters just don't listen. But I don't know if they want to know or they don't want to know. I appreciate the information because, if I was to have... I already look at it differently. I actually, since, coming and speaking at UC Irvine, and learning more about the brain, I look at it differently, and I take preventative measures now to mitigate as much as I can. And I get in my hyperbaric chamber, I use red light, I get really good sleep, I don't drink alcohol. These are all things that I've really prioritized to try to, mitigate it. Yeah, protect my brain as much as I can, give it back as much as I can, and don't steal from it. I used to drink in my 20s. I don't drink anymore. And that's just something I'm like, it's not good for my brain. Neither is fighting. But I think maybe I should pick one.
Yeah. There's also
You're only human.
There's something unique about UFC with the chokeouts, though.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. I'm very curious how that affects the brain. I don't really know.
Which is very different than boxing, for example. So the argument that, hey, you're not taking as many hits as you would in boxing, but you're not getting choked out in boxing.
That's so true.
What is that doing?
Do you guys have any, I'm curious, is there any idea of what is 6 seconds without the normal blood flow in that kind of situation? Enough to make somebody go unconscious.
Yeah. There is some literature on it.
Yeah.
Not specifically in the context of UFC, getting choked out in UFC. It's getting choked out in some other environments. You want to talk about it?
Yeah,
asphyxiophilia. He's talking about like a sexual asphyxiation. So there's been studies, obviously. I'm sure there's tons of animal work on losing oxygen to the brain and how much to the second is going to kill that first neuron and so on and so forth. I don't know that literature that well. But generally speaking, in neurosurgery, when they have to cut off blood supply to a particular area, about 4 minutes is that timeline at which, beyond that, brain cells are dying permanently. So 6-8 seconds sounds mild, right?
Yeah.
But how many times can that happen before the brain is taking some injury that might not be permanent, but might cause a dysfunction that eventually accumulates? And if enough of the debris from the dysfunction builds up over time, is not cleared with sleep, and has other toxins in the environment from alcohol, and it continues to occur because of continued sparring or fights or whatever. That environment for recovery from that asphyxiation is probably not adequate. But in the context of these other specific chokeouts, you have people looking at studies where 4 chokeouts in your life from sexual asphyxiation versus 0 or less than 4 can show functional brain imaging differences. And so it's been added to the DSM-5 criteria as part of the sexual disorders to say, hey, look, the recommendation is don't do that.
Yeah.
Even though in this case it creates a euphoria and a giddiness that then gets conditioned with the sexual pleasure, which creates this repetitive behavior. But in the case of obviously fighting and choking out there, the objective is to win a fight. But the cumulative injury there is unknown, but likely not negligible.
Yeah.
How many times do you think someone would get choked out over a year's worth of participating in the MMA?
Oh, well, I guess how good you are at grappling, how stubborn you are, but most people tap.
They'll tap
Most people
before
tap.
that.
Yeah, most
Yeah.
people don't lose consciousness. And
Mm.
I would say in my entire career, I've only lost consciousness twice.
Mm.
Once in training and once in a fight. Although it didn't look like I lost consciousness, but I didn't know where I was. And it was compounded with being hit. So I was already had been
Concussed.
losing my proprioception from like being hit, and then I was like in a chokehold, and I didn't have like the I'd lost like some control of my body. Like I remember like I had no strength. I don't know why that was, but it's like I had zero or like 10% of my strength.
Right.
I couldn't like pull or do anything. I was just like my body was uncoordinated. And then I tapped, but I don't remember that. And then I look at the video. And I tried to kind of like turn into her like I was still fighting. Like I just didn't know where I was. So it was like a level of unconsciousnly, but my body was still moving, but
Yeah.
I wasn't home.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's interesting. But also wonder if, when you're in a very oxygen, like anaerobic state, if that could potentially exacerbate the symptoms because your body needs the oxygen so bad at that point where, maybe I would think that in these studies, where people are doing it for more pleasure seeking purposes, that it's probably more of a relaxed state, like maybe a little bit your heart rate's elevated, but not to the point where,
fighting for your life.
fighting for your life. So I always, obviously there's so many variables when you do studies and things. It's hard to control for all of that.
Right.
But I wonder, obviously if you were to take somebody who just got done running sprints and they're just like redlined and you put them underwater, they're going to drown faster. Than somebody who's just like at rest.
No question.
So it's maybe your body needs that oxygen a little bit more. So who knows?
There's some literature on weight cutting too, that I'd love to talk to you about too, where those that cut weight to a significant degree experience concussion symptoms at baseline without having even been concussed.
Wow.
But then also it's also theorized that those that are cutting significant amounts of weight could potentially have more severe symptoms after they experience a concussion because of that phenomenon.
I have heard that. I've definitely heard that discussed and talked about, but I don't know at what percentage. I think it's like greater than 10% of your body weight, I think is what I understood that as, but I could be totally wrong.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But it is interesting, and how it was explained to me was I don't remember who explained it either, so I'm not saying this is reliable. But that when you deplete your body of so much fluid and you're dehydrating, that you can actually pull water a bit from like the brain area.
Yes.
And so you're more likely to get concussed from a punch that maybe wouldn't have hurt you as much otherwise.
That's a great point. I mean, it floats in your cerebral spinal fluid.
Right.
Your brain floats in your cerebral spinal fluid, which
Yeah.
is fluid and made up of water. So it would make sense that there would be a decreased amount of volume of your cerebral spinal fluid around your brain in the context of, significant weight cutting.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to learn more about that. I wonder how much weight they, where they got the data, like, and how much, what percentage were they cutting?
Right.
I would love to know more about that.
What were your experiences like with weight cutting?
Oh, I had some horrific ones, but I did it wrong for a really long time. But now I usually cut around, 11 pounds. Yeah, which is not a small number, but it's not hard. It's like, it's good and it's doable. I keep, the biggest thing for me is to make sure that I have electrolytes. We used to cut that out. We would, drink basically like distilled water and have no minerals, no electrolytes. And when you do that, you just feel
It's pretty dangerous.
horrible.
Yeah.
And you don't sweat. And so you just cook. And, we were the blind leading the blind. We all thought we were so, knew what to do. Get in a really hot bath and just sit there. Now I do it through movement too, so it's just like I'll just play wrestle, just really light, but my body's kind of like naturally excreting the water in a way that's like familiar to the body, as opposed to like sitting in something hot and just being passive until you literally feel like you're gonna pass out. Yeah. So I feel good with that, and I haven't experienced the negative effects. But I'll tell you about when I cut weight the wrong way and pulled, to the point where you feel like, you literally question if you're gonna like die. Like my hands were like cramping up and I was like, couldn't function. I just couldn't move. It was just an awful experience. And that's the one where I was telling you about where I got hit, and it was actually a jab. I got hit and I just got rocked, like right, and it was in a punch that would normally do that to me.
Jabs aren't typically punches.
Yeah,
that
not
cause those
typically.
symptoms. Yeah.
Granted, it was Amanda Nunes, so, you know, she hits like a man. And she's very strong.
Yeah.
But I pretty been known for like having a pretty good chin, and I think the weight cut didn't help. It certainly did not. It didn't serve me well. It was like one of the worst weight cuts that I ever had, and yeah, I was not. I don't think it helped me.
From what I could tell watching your fights, you could take a hit.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of your stories, I didn't get to see the fight. I don't know if it was ever public, but was one of your first fights against a coach, and you were bleeding on the mat. And you realized at that moment, this is a fight.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like getting hit, hard enough where you could hear your nose crunch, or where you might get disoriented like you did against Nunes?
So my first fight was just a very wild and unexpected experience. I don't know what I expected. I'm again, we'll go back 19 years old. It's my first fight.
Wow.
Never been hit or hit anybody for real in like a fight situation. I had very limited striking training, and first round I go out there, I wrestle her, I take her down. Don't even remember you could throw punches on the ground. I don't think I really knew how, because in wrestling, you use all your limbs to try to pin someone's shoulders to the ground. You don't release one to punch people. So I just didn't have that concept fully like bred into me yet. And then the second round, she puts me in a Muay Thai clinch, and I didn't know what it was. It's like a collar tie situation, and she begins kneeing my face and smashes my nose, and I'm, trying to take her down, and I'm diving at her ankles, I think, at this point, just trying to get past this collar tie. She spins around, she gets on my back, and I'm watching the blood stream from my nose into the pool that's, growing beneath me. And I think it was in that moment that I knew I was a fighter, though, because not consciously, you don't really have time to sit and dissect everything. But I look back at it now, and that could have been the moment that I was like, I'm done. I could have tapped. It could have been like, done. And I was just like, oh, hell no. I got mad, and I was like, I'm going to get her back for this one. And so I was like, okay, yeah, it's definitely something that's, that's in me to do this. I don't really have any quit in me. So I just keep going. And sometimes that served me really well. And other times it's been like, well, that was stupid, Miesha, but can't change it now.
There's one fight that I think it's on that highlight video where you get kicked square in the face.
Oh, yeah.
I forget who your opponent was.
It was Caitlin Young.
But I was like, it was one of those strikes where it's like, oh,
ragdolled.
she's out.
Yeah.
And you hit the ground, and then you also got punched straight in the face.
Oh,
and
I don't remember
somehow, we'll pull it up right now. Somehow you like pulled it out, and you ended up submitting her.
Okay. Oh, Julie Kedzie. Yes. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
okay, yes. Julie Kedzie. People used to love to try to kick me in the head.
Look, go to where
you have to go back a little bit further.
Kicks it.
Probably some highlights. Yeah, a little bit further than that.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah, so I back then too, I was a glutton for punishment and everything that I would do. There you go. She hits me in the face. Yeah. I was a glutton for punishment and everything. It's like I had to get hit hard to pull the best out of me, because I didn't know how to be kind to myself and just do it because I love it. It was just like, it was this weird, morbid relationship that I had with the sport, where it's like I had to get hit to almost wake up.
Well, but you got kicked square in the face. What does that feel like? What were you thinking, if anything?
It's just like this, it's like you go into fight or flight. You're just reacting at that point. So you don't really have time to usually... It's either you're either made to do it or you're not. You don't have it. You don't get to sit back and have the luxury of like making a decision. You just react, and so it's all muscle memory, really. It's like, how do you react to high pressure situations? And
man, but the fact
the aftermath of this fight. I mean, were you concussed?
Probably, but I don't remember having like severe symptoms. But I'm sure I had you can't take a hit like that and not have like a concussion, right? I mean, there's like grades to concussion.
It certainly seems like that was a concussive force.
Yes.
That's how we define it. Is the force great enough to cause a concussion? And then were there symptoms within the first 24 hours?
Not that I remember, but I certainly know that when I got kicked in the head by Caitlin Young, I didn't even remember. It was a tournament, and I fought. She was my second fight, and when she knocked me out, that was bad. It was earlier in my career than this one, and here goes the slow-mo. Here, watch this. Okay, like baseball bat. Oh, bam.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was
And then right here,
definitely
she
marked that one
she
as a
punches you in the
concussion.
face.
Oh yeah, she probably does. Oh, that one wasn't too hard though. But yeah, I mean, it's.
I don't know how you come back from that, Miesha. It's pretty awesome.
It wasn't the first.
But but you don't cower after that. You don't turn over and hope for the round to finish.
No.
The fact that you fight back and you end up submitting her.
Right. That's what it's
That's
all
the
about.
incredible
I mean,
part to me.
that's what is so rewarding about fighting is, just like nobody's coming to save you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's do or die out there. It's like
Yeah,
you either, you give up or you just keep fighting. And I just don't really know how to give up.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Mhm.
not, it's that one's not in my blood.
That's what you're known for.
Pretty good
Yeah.
problem to have.
Get into let's get a little deeper into this kind of aftermath bit. Like, so you've gotten that hit, but others. I mean, were you ever knocked out clean?
Mm-hmm.
What was the aftermath of that? Was that like, oh, I had a concussion, I got to take 7 days off, or what?
Oh,
Walk us through that as compared to an
it was
evolved elbow.
so long ago, and there wasn't even like the organizations were barely supporting women's MMA. It was back when Bodog and Hook and Shoot were where women's MMA lived, and I think they might have been on like HD Net or something. This was before Strikeforce and before the UFC.
Wow.
I got knocked out cold, and as I mentioned a little bit, I was getting into it, that it was my second fight of the night, and when that happened, I was out for a little bit. I don't know how long, but I was out for a little bit, and then they woke me up. I didn't even remember the first fight that I had.
Yeah.
So that was a bad one.
Wow.
Yeah, I got ragdolled.
That's wild, though. Multiple fights in one night.
Yeah. Oh, it was crazy back in the day.
Are they still doing that?
It was crazy. Not in most places.
Not in most
They'll do
countries.
tournament styles. I think like the PFL will do a tournament style, but it'll be spaced like months apart.
Mhm.
So they'll
Oh,
do
yeah,
it in a
yeah.
bracketing system, and they'll
Just
so
give
it's
some break.
Yeah.
a little bit more fair to the athlete.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so many variables when you do it all on the same night. Like, for example, that night, my first fight was supposed to be 3 rounds, and then there was no commission. So, like, the judges are just there, like, debating on who won, and they would not decide.
They
Like,
made you fight another round
made
and
me
another.
fight another round. So it was 4 rounds, and then Caitlin, the girl that knocked me out, her first fight was against a girl that had no prior fights.
So
So I
quick.
fought the most experienced girl in the tournament first draw.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then she fights a girl with no prior experience and knocks her out in like, it was less than a minute. I want to say it was like 16 seconds. It was
Wow.
really fast.
Wow.
So, when you do that, it's just like, it's not really, you can't exactly say who was the better fighter that night. Because
No, no.
obviously, I was exhausted and would have liked to give her a better fight. But,
Yeah.
what can you do?
Yeah.
Wow. So you've also had, orthopedic injuries, obviously, the elbow.
Yeah.
And, just compare what that's like for an athlete like you who, after a fight, your whole body and brain and everything probably feels like crap, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well,
What's the difference, though, when it's your head versus your elbow?
here's the scary part is that we don't often feel the brain part. We don't feel that part. We as athletes often only pay attention to the things that are glaringly obvious. And a lot of times brain trauma is not glaringly obvious. A lot of times it's
So
not.
no brain fog, no dizziness, no feeling slowed down, no headaches.
I think we don't really acknowledge it. We don't always chalk it up to the fight,
Maybe the weight cutting.
So, yeah. Sometimes it will happen to where people will seek more information, especially in the UFC. I will say the UFC is the most forward thinking in all of this. We have Heather Linden, who is the head of the physical therapy, and she's like incredible. She works a lot with the athletes, so she does try to make sure that the athletes are taken care of, and the scans and everything that we can do is good. But we don't always know that if there's brain trauma. Sometimes it's just like, these guys just like, oh, just quit being a weenie, they just like, you look fine, just suck it up. It's still very common to see that, unfortunately, but it's not as common as it used to be. So there's hope.
Different
There
for
is
females than
change.
males, or?
I think females are less prideful in this. We're definitely more like observing our symptoms. Generally speaking, I would say that females are not afraid to go and seek answers or help. But, I still see a lot of hard-headed men coming through that just don't ever want an excuse. They don't want to be weak. They just want to show up and fight people all day, Sean Strickland's a good example of that.
Any other differences that you've noticed between women and men in the sport in MMA?
Well, I think men, especially the big guys, I think they got it worse. I still feel like they get, they hit so hard. I'm almost really glad to be a woman. I'm like, I may not hit as hard, but I'm not going to get hit as hard.
Right.
There's just those heavyweight men, there's an off switch and they can touch it at any moment.
Yeah.
And I just feel like the brain trauma of being a heavyweight, if I was a heavyweight, I just don't know if I would fight. It's it's inevitable.
That's the threshold. I mean, it's interesting because everything we've said, the undercurrent really is that this sport has a cumulative effect on the brain that is probably not good. That's that's what we're saying, even though there's also a beauty to the sport and a livelihood. But there's going to be a time, a moment, a threshold at which it's not going to be worth it. And so it seems like, for you at least, it's a known fact in your mind that something could accumulate.
Yeah.
And at some point you're going to make that call. Have you ever been close enough after a fight, due to your understanding of brain health, that this is going to be?
No. Even with all the things that I know, I have never been like, okay, this is a very clear indication that maybe I should stop fighting. Nothing that has to do with my brain. So now maybe that's denial on my part, and I'll be totally honest and transparent, is that I don't think that I have glaring issues when it comes to, and my fiance may disagree. It's like, you always use your phone and you always, but I
we should have him here.
Right. He'll be like, yeah, right. I do leave the burner on and, burn food. That happens all the time. So there are things like that. But I really find that I feel like it's more me making a choice to be present or not. And what's interesting is I used to have more issues with remembering things when I was in that toxic relationship, and I was using kind of different tactics like disassociation and being absent, and just I think there are other words for that, but just not really being there, not being present. It was just a skill I did not have. Everything that I did was trying to not be present. It was trying to do the opposite, escapism. I think that's what it's called. And now that I choose to be present, that's so interesting that I have better memories. I better recall that I do now than I did then. So I know part of it is also a choice. I wasn't aware that that was an option or choice or a different way to live life. So,
and that speaks towards it being really brain trauma related, or accumulation of that brain trauma.
Yeah,
right?
I think so. I think it's just, it shows me that it's not just, it's not a clear indication that it's brain trauma, at least. And I've done a couple things I don't know if you guys what your thoughts are on the Amen's Clinic and, the brain scans and things like that. And I know that there's some controversy whether those are great or they're not. But at least in that case, it was a good test. I had a good score. Everything, checked out well. And I know Dr. Amina was like, I've seen you fight, and I thought this was going to look a lot worse. But, there's no glaring places in your brain where there's a lack of blood flow or anything like that. So whatever that's worth, that was a good test. And then he was like, do you do hyperbaric oxygen therapy? I was like, yeah, all the time. He's like, it shows. That's one thing that, we do notice a clinical improvement on when people, do. And so I think it helps to try to be as preventative as I can. And I really prioritize my sleep, especially after fight. I mean, I do it all the time. I prioritize it before or whatever, but some nights you just don't get great sleep. I'll always make sure that I get really good sleep. I don't go out and party after my fights, right? I prioritize that because I'm I need my brain to recover. And there are even other things like I don't eat close to bed because I know that if you have elevated, if your blood sugar is still elevated, it can quash your growth hormone. And I was like, well, I think growth hormone's important. I don't need any help quashing it because aging does that naturally. So little things like that, I try to give myself an edge in everything else that I do, where I think maybe, your everyday person isn't going to do those things because either they don't know or they don't care. Yeah. But when your business is your body, you got to try to find every little tiny angle and 1% if you can to
Well, it's
be
amazing.
your best.
It's amazing because, both you said denial, but I think the mentality around your body as a business and putting your body at risk in this sport, on one hand allows you guys to hit some extreme levels of performance, hit some flow states that allow you to do things that nobody else can do. But on the other hand, sweep under the rug whatever these injuries could be doing, these injuries and head impacts from sparring, from competing, and all the other potential risks. So it's interesting to think about that and have that duality to the mental game.
Right.
But now you're shifting gears to say, okay, well, I know it's probably better if I protect my brain, to reverse some of the things that have occurred over time. I think that's smart. And I think at the end of the day, we really don't know how many hits is too many.
Right.
There is no number in football, in NHL, in combat sports, in blast exposures. We don't know how many is too many, and it's probably not just the discrete concussive events. It's probably the repetitive non-concussive blows that build up over time. Maybe the chokeouts, maybe other types of weight cutting and insults to the brain, smoking cigarettes, toxin use, substance, all that stuff over time is definitely going to weigh in on the brain. So all of us should be thinking like you're thinking. Yeah. How do I protect my brain? All of us should be trying to gather as much information as possible.
Yeah. Did you say alcohol is like how detrimental to the brain? Whatever, do you guys know?
So there's the data goes both ways. Some alcohol is probably not terrible. No alcohol due to abstinence because it was a problem. Probably in the data set shows some risk actually for dementia and things like that. Yeah. So abstinence, but it's kind of a side effect of people becoming abstinent because it was previously a problem.
Right.
And so they've already kind of accumulated damages. And then drinking too much and having a substance use disorder is obviously not good for the brain.
And it destroys your sleep.
It does.
Yeah, it absolutely destroys your sleep architecture. We talked about this with Gina Poe. Yeah. Alcohol destroys your REM sleep. It destroys your slow wave sleep. And slow wave sleep has actually been shown to decrease and be associated with age and actually be a signature of age, especially developing dementia. So anything that you can do to preserve your slow wave sleep should be something that you prioritize. Exercise has been shown to preserve slow wave sleep. Alcohol destroys it. Weed destroys it. Opiate destroys it.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Toxins. I mean, it's
Especially
some of these things are common sense, but we've got arguments in our minds for why we should keep doing that, why maybe there's a cutoff at some point where we're just gonna.
Oh, and Lord knows I have my justifications too. If I do this, then I should be fine fighting.
Psilocybin though.
That's a good one for the brain, right?
Man,
is it like help the synapses? Is that right? Like grow back, or is that not?
I think there has been shown to be neuroplasticity with psilocybin and psychedelic use.
It all depends on what you mean by neuroplasticity. At the end of the day, what we can know in a human is very little, right? Because you can't have somebody take a drug like that and then cut open their brain and watch these synapses evolve and grow. Because we only have imaging. That's just like a way to get through that black box of a skull and look at how some of the brain is behaving with some limited capacity. Just a slice of what's happening there. And what it shows is that it breaks down the normal compartmentalization of the brain, where normally the vision and motor centers are doing their own thing and sometimes act together to coordinate a behavior, or normally the speech center that produces speech and the understanding center that understands and listens act independently and then sometimes communicate. But when all of those different centers and networks are kind of open to communication, new things can spark. New understandings, new realizations. And so it's thought that this creates this hyper state of breakdown of boundaries and plasticity. So understandings, realizations, epiphanies can occur in these moments.
Sounds like you're describing neuroplasticity.
So yeah,
Yeah, in
it
a
could
way.
be, and it probably has something to do with
many
it.
definitions of what neuroplasticity is, huh?
Right.
Right.
It's certainly like a super hot word right now. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
does it do neuroplasticity? Does it
So-
not?
So I was gonna ask a question about that. Now I'm like, what was it? This is what I get when I didn't get enough sleep last night. We're driving in the RV. I got
Yeah.
4 hours of sleep. Now my recall's off. You see what I mean? That's why I'm drinking caffeine, trying to be like, stay sharp, Miesha. But the neuroplasticity with, potential neuroplasticity with psilocybin and those things. I wonder if, it's the same with ketamine
Mhm,
and. And or like psilocybin, or I don't know.
Well, the question is, forget whether it causes neuroplasticity or not. Is that a reparative thing, a curative thing, something that's long-lasting, or is it a
sustainable
discrete
thing,
experience where the
Right.
experience actually reiterates? My impression of the literature is that, like a trauma can echo in the nervous system and be relived over and over again, even though the traumatic experience is not physically occurring over and over again.
Right.
Even though maybe the neurons didn't physically and permanently change to adapt to that trauma, over time, re-experiencing it enough times, ruminating it enough times is repetition for the nervous system. And so repetition eventually causes plasticity. And so in the same way, I think psilocybin and other potentially positive events like the first child you had or when you got married or whatever it is, can replay in your mind over and over and over. It can echo, which that repetition in itself can cause a longer lasting plasticity, as it sounds like it has for you.
Fascinating. Yes, for me, that's certainly been my experience. And it was just, like I said, one time. And then I've microdosed since then, too. I just take like a little tiny bit. It's not really about it. Like, I don't want like optics. Like, I'm not looking to like see things move or
Yeah,
change colors,
yeah.
just like this little bit. And it can just kind of like be that little, like, it like reverberate a little bit, some of that positivity and like, I don't know. It's been a very interesting experience. And I'm not somebody who, I pretty much steer clear of anything that's would resemble a prescription or any, like, I don't even like ibuprofen, like nothing. I don't smoke weed. I very rarely drink alcohol, maybe a glass of wine here and there. But, and I don't ingest psilocybin that much either, but that is like my choice now if I was going to do something, and
Yeah.
it's just
I feel
I like it.
there is something to the hallucinogenic experience, though, that I think Kevin's referring to.
Oh yeah.
Is to being able to think back on that experience and
Well,
reverberate on it. And there's companies out there, and I think there's a big movement now to getting rid of the hallucinogenic experience, but keeping sort of the chemical effects of psilocybin so that you can give it to more people, because that's a big limiting effect, right? If you want to implement it into healthcare. And I hate to see that, because I think this hallucinogenic experience is so key to the actual benefits.
Yeah.
And I think microdosing versus mid-dosing versus macrodosing is also an area we need to understand more about. But microdosing means you should feel nothing. Mid-dosing means you might feel a little something, and obviously macrodosing is the trip. And so the microdosing studies don't really show major benefits.
Yeah.
Mid-dosing a little more, and then macrodosing.
Well, that's
more.
fair then. I say
So-
I'm somewhere between micro and mid.
Yeah,
Mm.
and most of the
Sometimes
Silicon
I don't
Valley.
feel anything, and then sometimes I feel like a little bit, but I don't measure it, so it's kind of a little guesswork.
Most of the anecdotes and N of 1 studies from Silicon Valley where these people are trying to improve their efficiency in their microdosing is actually mid-dosing. And so it's possible that we're just missing the mark in our microdosing studies. But let's talk about the brain scans a little bit that you had at Ames. We had,
Oh, you got them.
there
we are.
we got the
They did not
renderings
send them to us, that's for sure.
from the YouTube Scan My Brain episode.
Yes.
Where you met with the Amen Clinic doc. And so I think the big picture I want to come at this with is, look, there are tools that we all use in medicine to explain things to our patients, and that's critical. Sometimes just to reassure them that all things look good. There's nothing here I can see that's detrimental, or to explain a tough concept like neuroplasticity. If we could use a brain scan to show them, like, hey, your brain's still plastic, you're making new neurons, new connections, that would be really beneficial. It could be a tool to help compel you, to
Right.
reassure you, to inspire you, to motivate good behavior or something like that. Or, but the trouble, and I think the reason why the Amen Clinic is so contentious and controversial, is he's using these scans to make a definitive diagnosis, TBI or no TBI history, or ADHD or autism or some neurodegenerative propensity or none, just based on a single scan. But the explanation here is that these are blood flow scans, and so just take one picture of the brain. And I'll give you an analogy in a few minutes. But they asked you, what do you think about this on the Scan My Brain episode, looking at the kind of healthy SPECT scan of blood flow through one brain versus the SPECT scan of blood flow through your brain. And you said, oh, it looks pretty similar. Looking at it again, anything jump out to you?
Yeah, it's more different than I remember.
It's a bigger screen.
Cool. Yeah, that's true. It's like a little peek, and then there's obviously more, like it's carved out kind of through my brain in those areas. But I was just glad that there was something there.
No doubt. No doubt.
There is blood flow.
That's how I start all my appointments. I say, well, look, there's something in there. And I was like, okay,
good.
thank God. But I like his major point. His major take home to you was, hey, look, you've got a lot of blood flow in your brain.
Yeah.
But frankly, even though you've had a lot of hits in your life, I would never have expected you not to have a lot of blood flow. You know why? Because you're
an
up.
athlete.
You're up walking around, talking, taking care of kids, preparing for fights, and battling people. It doesn't. Your brain can't possibly function.
Do all those things
right.
if it was.
And so I know without taking a scan that your brain looks awesome.
Okay.
But
I like that.
The utility of something like this has an allure, has a future to it. Like if we could scan someone's brain and know they have CTE, now that's something, right?
Right.
That's something we could actually use today to say, hey, you've reached the threshold, or maybe we even have, grades of CTE from scans or blood biomarkers. We say, hey, you're reaching that threshold. Now it's time to hang up the gloves.
Yeah.
We're not there, but
Right.
I think that's where it needs to head. Unfortunately, the Amen Clinic takes advantage of this crappy scan, which is great for finding lesions like a, tumor. It's great for that because it shows a hot spot where blood flow increases, or a seizure focus where some region's overactive or something like that. But to diagnose, hey, have you ever had a TBI? That's a leading question,
Right.
Yeah, somebody hit me in the head one time, yeah.
Yeah.
Or, for you, we already know your history.
Right.
Watch videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's another problem with SPECT scans that I just want to, you want to say something?
Yeah, tell me. No, I want to hear what you had to say. I'm going to have my question either way. But do you have the scan with the
inside?
The lights, or whatever, all the, I don't know what you say.
The deeper one that showed the emotional center?
It's like
and the parietal lobe?
Oh, yeah.
Blue and red.
Yes.
I didn't capture it, but I'm happy to talk about it. I looked at it and watched it. And
okay. So the next. Okay.
Save that question?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'll just show the healthy scan, and then I'm going to toggle. Oh, we didn't delete it. Did it come up? No. So suffice it to say, let me show it to you here. Healthy, non-healthy. If I think he wanted to, he could have said, no, look, you've got these big holes here, right? There's something missing. Have you had trauma in your life? And you could have been like, of course I have. I have. And he said, well, this is what happens when you have TBI. And that would be believable, right? But the bottom line is, if you were to look at, let's just make an analogy, a temperature map of Southern California, and we're looking at just generally temperature across the region, this is what it would look like. But if I then said, well, let me just threshold this different, let me just look at the areas that are between 80 and 100 degrees, suddenly oh man, I'm not getting any of these things. Let me pop out of here and just show it.
Okay.
Suddenly it would look like that, right?
Right.
It would look like there's massive holes where there's suddenly no data, there's suddenly no activity, no heat, no temperature. But we know that's not true. These areas have temperatures, just like thresholded the map different.
Right.
So it's
Can you blow that up?
It's actually possible that for brain scans, when you're doing some analysis of the underlying ones and zeros, you eventually get to a very full, healthy-looking image, a 3D rendering. Or if you threshold it slightly different, you can have these big holes in the brain. And he's used these in the Scan My Brain episodes to say, look, there's a problem there. In one episode in particular, he said that and said, have you ever had a traumatic brain injury? And the woman was like, no, not really. Well, I did get in a couple car accidents, but I wasn't really symptomatic. He said, oh, well, tell me about them. And then went down this road, and she said, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And it led down this like epiphany for her, but based on a thresholded map that
May or may not be very
exactly.
accurate.
And then take blood flow is just one thing. Like, let's take this as like an electrical grid of Southern California. If there's a hot area, does that mean all the ACs are running, or does it mean there's a concert there?
Yeah.
You don't really know, even
Yeah.
though there's increased blood flow to an area or decreased,
Yeah.
what's actually causing that, because it's a blood flow map. It's not a single cell recording map, or we don't know if those emotions that are percolating there that are causing activity are positive or negative or neutral or what have you.
And he gave a
Right.
good example to me when he was telling me about this, that sometimes if your brain is working like really efficiently, you won't have as much blood flow to that part of the brain because it doesn't need it in that circumstance,
Yes.
right? So it's not
That's
necessarily
not
always
thing,
a bad thing
maybe.
or a deficit.
Or
you
if
know?
there's increased activity, it might actually be that it has to work harder to compensate for a
Right.
deficiency. So
This just goes to show that even studies and information and everything should always be looked at with multiple lenses. And if you're not somebody like myself who can sit down and really tell you like this was a great study or not, I feel like I have to take the information, and I also have to really lean on my intuition. I have to like listen to how I feel. There's a lot of controversy, for example, about fasting. Is it good for women or not? And some people are like, it's not at all. It's bad. And some people are like, no, it's great, but it has to be done a certain way. And some people are just like, no, women should be able to do it how men do it. And it's like, there's all these different gradients of like, some people just fasting is good. Everybody should do it. It's good for everybody. And it's like, I take all that and I look at it and say, well, this is new information. Like, okay, maybe I won't fast around this time in my cycle because I understand that progesterone is kind of like, I call it like the, it's like hangout hormone. Like, you just want to chill, like watch a movie and chill. You don't like stress or nothing like that. So I'm like, okay, well then life is stressful enough. Maybe I don't need to add fasting at that time. But there are other times when I feel like better about fasting and like, okay, I'm ready to take on that challenge. I do think that's important for women to know that. But some people are like, no, just fasting period is not good for women. Like Dr. Stacy Sims, who I love following her work. She's just leading some great research and information about women, female athletes, menopause, all these things. And she's not an advocate for women fasting, generally speaking. But I still practice it, even though I really admire her work, because I still feel like I'm able to listen to my body and get the best. Right. So
that's like the number one take home after having many of these podcasts with all these different experts and athletes is like, listen, you can take all of the expertise that's out there from literature, which is on a population of people, where there's two ends of the spectrum that don't behave like everyone else, and then there's the middle, right? And so if you're taking the advice from the middle, then you're missing that you could be in any one of these areas on the ends. And so that might be where you live. And if you don't have a strategy, a framework to listen to yourself, to trust yourself, to be systematic about your own personal experimentation, then you're going to just be behaving like everybody else. Or listening to the Hubermans and the Atiyahs out there, which have pretty extreme, very rigid protocols that are just not going to apply to most people.
Right, to everybody.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that I was sitting talking with you guys last year and learning about the mice, and that sometimes when research is done, you guys receive the funding for the research and are told that female mice have to be included. But that sometimes, and it skews the data so much because of the estrous cycle of the female mice, that in order to get accurate data, sometimes the mice have to be sterilized. And that was mind-blowing to me too, because there's not very much research out there to begin with for women and our cycles. And really, I feel like it would probably cost like 4 times as much as like one study. Like you could just like study men, I think, and you get that one study. But then for women, you'd have to at least have 3 phases of studying it to like be like, okay, is she in the estrogen cycle, testosterone cycle, or progesterone phase, luteal phase? Like where is she in her cycle? Because all those things change the variables of everything. So even learning that sometimes the data that seems to also apply for women and may not be as accurate as we presume that it is. I mean, that's just like most people don't even know that. I found that very valuable.
That's a perfect realization, because that in essence is all of science, right? It's not going to apply to everybody.
Right.
And that's a huge chunk of the population whom some of the research does not apply to. So if you're always thinking like that, this is a good piece of information, but I also have to listen to my gut and
Yeah.
be thoughtful and conscientious about that. I think that's a good patient. That's a good person who's in their 30s and 40s who has a critical window of opportunity to protect and enhance their brain for
Yeah.
the long haul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking
Yeah.
to the experts, again, we've talked to Gina Poe, the people over at Zoe in Nutrition and Pain. And really, the lesson that I've been taking away is the same thing. It's like you just got to learn how to listen to your body, right? Because everything's so nuanced. Everyone's so different.
Yeah.
You can
Which
take
we've
in the
lost track
information-
of because
of this,
of
because
technology
phones and
and
computers, and
Oh yeah.
externalizing our entire world. Where instead of just looking in, being present, like you've
Yeah.
learned how to be, hasn't allowed us to realize what it is that we actually need.
also
Yeah.
just being busy, burning the candle at both
Both
Yeah.
ends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm working on that.
Yeah.
Trying
Wow.
to just, with this normal candle
Yeah.
now. Just want to be a normal candle.
Yeah. Let's
Oh,
do
that's
this.
so
Do you want to do the brain health test?
Oh yeah, sure. So
Oh wait, what did you think about the part of the brain
Oh.
that was like when it was like my brain looked like it was very, I remember,
Bring it up.
like hyperactive, if you will, like a little bit. And I don't know if this is for everybody, but I am certainly somebody who I'm easily distracted because I absorb a lot of information at once.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hear a lot of the things in the room. I notice a lot of things in the room. Like my brain is always taking in a lot of information, and maybe that's normal. Maybe like everyone's like, yeah, duh, everybody does that. But I feel like I'll walk into a room, and in my house or something, and I'll be like, the sliding door's open.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can just hear it.
Mm.
I just hear that the sound outside is louder than it should be, and it'll bother me, and I have to go close it. It's like weird things like that. I don't know. I just notice things like the sounds of things. I'm constantly taking in a lot of information, and it can lead me to overwhelm pretty quickly if I'm not managing it. So there's little things like I take breath work. I try to incorporate that into my day to just mitigate some of what feels like chaos.
Yeah,
There's a lot of information at once.
yeah. I think everyone wants an explanation for these differences, these individual differences that are unique to them, and may explain. If a brain scan could explain who I am, then I'm going to feel better about it, or lean into it, or try to make some accommodations for it. And it would be helpful if the brain scans did that. It's just that functional brain scans, where they're looking at blood flow to an area, are just one map, which
Right.
doesn't get at what is actually happening underneath the surface. It just gets at a general idea of activity. But again, if it was an electrical grid, and there was an area that was completely absent from the map, you wouldn't know if the power went out, or
Right.
if it was just cool enough there that no ACs were running, or what have you, right?
Right.
And so just in the same analogy, looking on your left at the healthy SPECT scan of the subcortical, beneath the cortex areas, versus your SPECT scan, it looks like a dramatic difference. I want to make a lot from it. I want to say, oh, well, that region's in conflict resolution, and these regions are motor centers, and some part of them is in reward, and this is your cerebellum balance areas, and maybe this is part of the connections between your parietal cortex, the sensory area that allows you to experience different sensations, and the rest of your brain, and so on and so forth. I can make a lot from it, but it's like an ink blot test. Like I can look at this thing, ask you, what do you think? And then you can start to tell me your story about sensing all the different things in your environment. I can say, oh yeah, no, perfect.
Yes.
So-
I totally understand what you're saying. And
Yeah.
this can be kind of like you lead into it and then you just begin to believe it.
I don't
Isn't
want to
this
ruin
how-
an experience for you,
No.
and I am reassured in general, but
Yeah.
just by meeting you and listening to you and listening to your insights,
Right.
I'm even more
Yeah.
It's
They
much
take
more
almost
compelling.
more away from that.
than a single view of your brain.
So it's like we were talking about the MRI, how that's like, we as athletes think, well, that's the gold standard. It's going to tell you everything you want to know. But it's just like, again, it's just like one
Exactly.
thin layer, and, many ways that you can look and take information about the brain.
Right, in many ways that we don't even have access to yet. Eventually, we'll have higher resolution, or we'll be able to look at things in a faster way. Looking at tiny cell activities, be able to take all that with AI and build a map for what you're thinking about. But we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Functional scans are not there yet. And the other thing to think about for blood flow is, like, if you had caffeine this morning, or on your way to that scan, or if you slept bad, or if you were in a different mood, actually that impacts blood flow.
Oh, yeah. These could be, I imagine, so vastly different from day to day,
Yeah.
moment to moment, hour to hour.
And you're talking about cycles,
Yes.
right? In women,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's drastically different from one cycle to the
Very.
next.
Yeah.
So that's the debate really in the field about, in general, weighing functional brain scans
Yep.
as a definitive way to make a diagnosis. Most scientists and physicians will say, well, you can't do that. You know, in the population, if you look at a ton of people, you can make broad distinctions. And even that doesn't match up that well yet in the literature. There's tons of studies that say after long-term periods after concussion, there's increased activity.
Right.
And some studies say there's decreased activity. Some studies show there's no difference. So what are we supposed to
Sometimes
believe
the
here?
science makes me feel like I'm chasing my tail in all of it because I'm like, I don't know where the answer is. And that's where I come back to, you know what? The best thing I can do is take the information that I think applies to me based on my own intuition,
Mhm.
based on my feedback. What do
Mhm.
I feel? And I like to try things based on new information.
Mhm.
So when I learned about, don't eat really close to big meals close to bed, I'm like, I tried it and I'm like, yeah, I feel better. My Aura ring also kind of says that, mine stopped working. I need to get a new one, but I was wearing it religiously. But anyways, I got the information, and my HRV would tank when I would eat close to bed, and I was like, my recovery, and I was like, and I don't feel. I was like, okay, well, that's probably something that for me is true. I don't think I should eat big meals close to bed.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have known that if it wasn't for the science. So it's like this beautiful symbiotic blend, but we can't take either thing as just like, this is the gold standard, this is the way that it is, and there's no room for taking in new information, because then I think we do a disservice.
You miss something.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, what test are we doing? I'm drinking the rest of my caffeine real
Oh,
quick.
all right. Well, it's not a cognitive battery. That would
Okay,
be
good.
interesting.
I'm like, wake up. I get nervous when you're like, are you testing me?
No, you just gotta answer. It's just a questionnaire. You just gotta answer some
Okay.
questions. Yeah.
Are you guys gonna lead me in something? Let's see.
Yeah. Well, it's just
Okay.
straightforward.
All right.
So, I'll just preface this by people's answers to this had a much better prediction of whether they were going to go on to have a dementia or a stroke than things like functional scans. And so this is actually has pretty good what we could say predictive power.
Okay.
And so people who had 5 points more on this scale tended to fare better. And so you can see how you score. So do you know your resting blood pressure? Is it normal?
I know that it's good. Whatever, really good. Like no.
The best.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whatever it is, it's very good.
And your A1C, which is like your diabetes number, if you don't have
It's
high blood glucose or
I'm sure it would be low, less than 5.7. I know, my fasting insulin was like 2,
okay,
Okay.
all right.
so that would probably, does that correlate with that?
It probably does. I don't know that correlation off the top of my head, but
Uh,
let's make some guesses here.
oh yeah.
Cholesterol, no
That's
treatment,
fine.
good?
No treatment, yeah.
Body mass index, I want to guess.
Yeah, healthy, or I'm definitely not underweight. I think I push a little bit more, like a little closer.
To
I'm like
25.
28 or 29 or something like that. So it's like between there because I have a lot of muscle.
Right. So this is probably a broader conversation about, is BMI an actual good indicator, right?
And so for people who
Yeah.
have more muscle mass, it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
But we'll put you there just to
Okay.
give you a number.
Mhm.
All right. And then dietary habits, fewer than 2 of those, 2 of the recommendations, or 3 or more.
Okay, wait, let's see.
4 to 5 servings of fruits and vegetables, 2 servings of lean protein, 3 or more servings of whole grains, less than 1,500 milligrams of sodium.
Well, I think that's silly, the sodium. I will never abide by that. I don't believe that we need to eat grains, and I don't eat that much vegetables, but I do eat fruit. I don't know if I eat 4 to 5 servings, and I eat a lot of protein every day. Okay, so
At least 2 of these,
Okay.
it sounds like you're on.
oh yeah, I would say 3. Less than 36 ounces of sugar sweetened beverages. I don't drink that,
We're
any of
there.
that stuff. So yeah.
So you get the full points for that. Alcohol consumption, 0 to 1 drinks per week, 2 to 3, 4 or more.
0. Yeah, I don't drink any.
Cigarettes,
Nope. Aerobic activity. Let's see.
You blow
Wait,
this
which
one
one's?
at least
yeah, I would say
150 minutes.
yeah.
And then your sleep habits, untreated sleep disorder or treated sleep disturbances, or at least 7 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah, I'm a good sleeper. I sleep really well. People are like, why don't you need caffeine? So the only way that I had tea today was just because we were driving in the RV and I only slept like 4 hours. So I'm like, that's terrible. Now I know what people feel like when they need coffee. You know what I mean? That's never me, though. I always sleep really well.
Stress levels manageable, moderate levels occasionally makes difficult to function, high levels makes it.
I would say moderate. Yeah, it's moderate. Sometimes it's difficult. If it gets like easy or manageable, I don't know why, but I throw more on my plate. I can never just chill out. It's just not my personality. I don't know.
Social relationships, few or no close connections, at least 2 people.
Oh, at least 2 people.
Yeah. And meaning in life. I often struggle to find value, or I generally feel that my life has meaning.
My life has lots of meaning. It's a pretty good life.
Let's see where we're at. This might be the highest score. 19 out of 21.
Ever inputted through Kevin's computer.
19 out of 21. And so, again, you can gain 5 points just by having a couple social connections, a sense of meaning, have normal blood pressure. These things, you could see how each one of those we were adding points by having all of the positive scores you had. And having 5 more points gets you 60% risk reduction if you're under 50 for dementia or stroke.
5 or more points?
5 more points than average. So like a difference between.
Average?
So like, let's say I had a score of 15 on this,
Okay.
or 13 on this, and you scored a 19, you would have 60% risk reduction as compared to me.
Oh, okay, so it's comparative. So at any point, so if you had 5 points and I had 10 points,
Yeah.
then it's like a 60%.
Yes.
It's kind of relative in that way.
What's interesting is traumatic brain injury hitting your head isn't on there.
And so this is
Isn't
also
in
an
that
incomplete
questionnaire.
scan, if you will. And so there's more and more we could do, more data we could put in. But if you think about it, it's like, how do we get a snapshot that is helpful and actionable? If the snapshot tells us, you know what, you've got to take more supplements that are, somehow obscure and, because you've got a hole in your brain.
Right. What supplements are you a fan of? Do you like creatine? I feel like that's a really well-studied one. It's a good one, right, for the brain?
So there's, first of all, supplements, it's a wild west. They're not controlled. Just to give you a sense, melatonin, for example.
Oh, yeah.
If
That's
you
a
look-
hormone. It's kind of crazy to me that that's...
Well, if you look
right?
across the over-the-counter melatonins, a study was recently done where you find that some have 10 times the amount of actual melatonin than what is listed on the bottle. Some have no melatonin.
Supplements are not regulated. That's so interesting.
So
for the
we're in
most
that
part.
wild space.
That's why I go with NSF certified. I think there are other ones, but actually as a UFC athlete, it's highly recommended that we get certified supplements. We have like this list, and NSF is the one that I always stands out to me. But there are a few other things, because you want to make sure that what says is in the bottle is what's in the bottle,
in there.
not just what says in the bottle, but also that there's not other things that aren't listed on the bottle.
Preservatives,
That's in
emulsifiers.
there. Yeah, preservatives, emulsifiers, lead, like heavy metals, these weird things can also be in there if it's not a certified supplement. So even if they did have exactly the right amount of melatonin, well, if they also have like, I don't know, arsenic or lead, are you going to feel great after that? Probably not.
So in general, I think supplements is a great conversation. I think that if you're thinking about brain health and you haven't done some of the fundamentals that we just saw in that brain care score that we took, if you haven't had 150 minutes of exercise a week, if you're not having a whole food, primarily plant-based Mediterranean diet, if you're not sleeping 7 hours.
Did you say plant-based? I'm meat-based.
No, it's not
Animal-based.
just plant-based primarily.
Okay, good.
So you've got to have enough plants, right?
Okay.
And that means legumes like nuts.
Okay, what about like
veggies, fruits.
anti-nutrients and stuff? That's probably not your whole field. I hear about this. It's really interesting to me. I was just listening to I'm gonna out myself as a little bit of a nerd right now, but I was on the drive and I was listening to an audiobook about fermenting.
Okay, yeah.
I'm into fermentation,
Yeah.
and it talks about how that process can kind of break down some of the potential anti-nutrients, because there's a lot of the research that I've seen says that sometimes when you eat vegetables, that anti-nutrients can counter absorption. Like if, let's say you had spinach and I think it was mussels at the same time, it was some kind of shellfish, that the anti-nutrients of the spinach could actually block, I think it was zinc. It's really interesting to me. And then I'm reading this book about the evolution of the human brain and like a body and like how we maybe potentially came from apes and whatnot. And it talks about like meat. And when we started eating meat, that's when our brain
Starts to
became
light up.
really, it started to become more efficient. It's interesting. I mean, I'm not saying it's good or it's bad, but I do think there's like the bioavailability. I do believe.
Have you looked into the microbiome?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
So we just had
fascinating.
on Tim Spector, Sarah Berry, who are, they're in the leadership for the Zoe company. They're based out of UK. They're doing all this amazing scientific work looking at, the gut microbiome and really honing the kind of things that feed your gut microbiome and how that impacts mental health, brain health, and overall longevity.
I hear the fiber from vegetables and stuff is good for the gut.
Yes.
But I bet you fermented fiber is probably even better.
Do you know how many people are deficient in the United States of fiber?
Well, it's probably a lot of people.
95%.
Well, yeah, of course, because it's like not fiber in processed foods.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But that's interesting because I always wonder, I mean, is the diet thing, I could go on for a while on that, is like so interesting to me.
Yeah.
But I think that vegetables and like fruits are, I think I would prioritize meats and fruits. There's a lot of fiber in fruits. And then I feel like vegetables is like a fallback. That's kind of how I look at it. It's like we would have never prioritized those if we were hunting and gathering. We wouldn't, it would have been like what we ate if we had to. But now I think people think that it's like should be a primary thing because everybody's focused on losing weight. And because there's not a lot of calories in that food, we assume it's healthy. But I don't think it's optimal food. Like I don't think it should be like eat your veggies before you eat your meat. It's like, nope, eat your meat and some veggies probably too. But I think some vegetables can stress you out. Then I also am not an avoidance person, so I'm like, bring it on.
Right.
Stress my body out. Like I'm gonna adapt to this, So it's like
Yeah.
it's all of those things. Like you gotta take it all in.
Yeah, we
and
hear
see.
you.
That is, it's complex, and the combination of different foods, the form that the food is in, like
Yes.
a whole almond is different
Right.
than a cut up or a fully, floured almond.
And cooked food,
Right.
right? And then
Exactly.
fermented food.
Yep.
We used to ferment a lot more because we didn't have refrigeration, so
Right.
we'd get all those great,
Bugs.
nutrients from the fiber, but things would be broken down more. We get all those microbes and all that good stuff. So
Yeah.
I like to make ferments now. I'm into it.
What do
Yeah.
you make?
I ferment a lot of food now.
Yeah,
So
well, what
I-
kind of food do you ferment? What's your
Well,
go-to?
the easiest thing for me to do all the time is like I cut up a bunch of fruits and I'll just wait. It's the easiest thing ever. Honey, fruit, water. And you just cut up the fruits and you put your weights on top of it, and then I mix honey and water together, and then I cover that and I leave it for a few days on the countertop, and they take the juice, quote unquote, and I give that to my kids. It's pretty low in sugar. It carbonates itself. You put it in a swing top bottle, let it sit there for another day, and it's just full of chock full of probiotics.
Yeah.
I make kefir. So I have kefir grains, and we drink that and put that in our yogurt and our smoothies. And then what's the other thing they do? Sourdough bread.
Yes.
So if I'm going to eat bread, it's usually a sourdough.
Yeah.
And I've made sauerkraut. I want to explore with pickles. So yeah, pickling and fermenting pickles, two totally different things.
Totally, yeah. That's hard. Sometimes you think about pickles as fermented,
Yep.
but you have to
It's
buy it or make
It
the
has
ones
to
that
say
are actually
naturally fermented.
Right,
You look on the
right,
label
right.
if that's what you want. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're just buying pickles and vinegar basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Just tastes
So-
great.
Yeah, but I find the gut-brain barrier, like the gut-brain connection, really fascinating. I think there's still a lot we got to unpack there, but
Yeah.
I do think a healthy gut is pretty important to a healthy brain too.
Someone's got to fact check me, but didn't Tim say that there's more bacteria in our gut than there are cells in our body?
Yes, and also it's about the same weight as our brain.
So let's go to where maybe what would you recommend upcoming fighters or fighters on your level or people retiring? What would you recommend for them based off of what you've learned from your experience as well as, what you're learning now?
Well, I mean, one thing I would say is trying to be more than just about the sport. You've got to just have layers to who you are, because it's really scary to put everything that you have and all your value into one thing and have it not work out. And then even if it does work out, it doesn't mean that it's going to last forever. So I really think that being a little bit more diverse in your approach to life is important for you as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
You know what they say? The other thing is be your own best friend. Like that reframe, like when you realize you have negative self-talk, because it's just you're affirming whatever it is that you're saying to yourself. And sometimes you're not really conscious of it. And sometimes people just say it, they'll say it out loud. We do this all the time, right? It's like, oh, I'm so stupid. You'll say that. And I'm like, I always just tell people like, no, you're not. You made a mistake. I try to like help people like reframe it, because I'm like, I used to do the same thing to myself. Like, God, sometimes still I did it just the other day and I was like, such an idiot. And I was like, okay, I'm not an idiot. I just, I had to reframe it, because it was like, I would never speak to someone else like that, right? I mean, it's just rude. I would never do that. Like, if you were driving and you took the wrong turn, I would be like, God, you're such an idiot. But like, why do we do that to ourselves? Yeah. And so...
It's okay. There's this joke, one of my favorite comics, Louis C.K. makes, where when you're in traffic, you're like a completely different person, where someone cuts you off and you'll, say, I wish you died, blah, blah, blah. But then if, maybe they cut you off while walking or bumped into you in an elevator, you wouldn't turn to them.
Right. It's like this safety of being in the bubble of your car that you're just like, they can't get me, so I'm just going to be tough over here.
Or in the bubble of your own mind. With yourself.
Yeah,
you know
true.
what I mean? Like,
but I think there's something
like
about the barrier of like that you're confined in a space and they're confined in a separate space that lets people be more comfortable. Because like you said, if you're like physically, if somebody like bumped you, most people would react differently than they do in the car.
So how do you identify?
Like male, female? I'm just kidding.
Well, we can start there. But how do you identify in the sense of like as a fighter, as a mother, personally?
I think my whole identification is trying to enjoy the process and not the outcome. We talked a little bit about that, being effort-based instead of outcome-based. I want to be genuinely the best person in all the different aspects that I do, and I want to enjoy the process. I just want to enjoy life. It doesn't mean that I'm happy all the time, because I just think that is a illusion that is set. Everyone's chasing happiness, and I think that's nonsense. Like, we're sitting right here, we're not, like, if I asked you, like, are you happy right now? Like, no, you're focused. We're not happy. We're not in a blissful, like, yay, blissful state. Like, we're enjoying ourselves, sure, but like, I wouldn't describe this as like, this isn't like happiness, right? This is just like a state we're existing in, and most of the time most people aren't living in happiness, yet we're told that we've got to be in this ultimate pursuit for happiness. I just want to be happy. I'm like, it's not necessarily true. And I read a book called, I'm in the process of reading it. It's called Bad Therapy, like about 3/4 of the way through it. And it's really interesting, where it just like talks about people ruminating in the feelings that they have, and how we teach children to be like really hyper aware, and young adults of how they feel all the time. It was like, maybe we don't need to ruminate in it. I do think we need to be able to move through our feelings. This is something that I do differently now, is like, if I'm mad, I just try to be really mad. I'm done with avoiding it. I'm done with tucking it down deep. Like, my whole strategy in life, so it's like advice to people, is like, let your feelings move through you. There's no good ones, there's no bad ones. Happiness is not a good feeling, it's not a bad feeling. Sadness is not a good feeling, it's not a bad feeling. It's just human. We're all going to have it. And so if you just try to avoid it and be like, oh, I don't want to be sad because that's bad. I don't want to be mad because that's bad. No, now I just like, I literally will, like throw things. Like, I'll throw my pillow, or I'll punch things, or I'll scream. Like, and it sounds crazy. Like, are you crazy? But I'm like, it is so nice to just let a feeling move through you, as opposed to have to carry it with you day in and day out. And then you wonder why you don't feel good. You may not feel happy, but right now, like, I'm not seeking happiness in this. I feel good. That's what I want.
Yeah, it sounds like one of those kind of a bottom-up approach. And we talked to Bessel van der Kolk, who's wrote The Body Keeps the Score.
I love that book.
Yeah,
yes.
So we talked to him specifically in the context of...
I want to have his contact.
Yeah.
I want him on my podcast.
Yeah.
By the way, Built for Growth, everybody.
Yeah, and we'll get to that. Don't worry, we'll get to asking about that. But sort of that bottom-up approach that involves like a lot of like body-based therapies of grounding and different things like that. Mindfulness relative to these kind of therapies that keep exposing you over and over again to the trauma over and over and over again.
That's exactly what the book Bad Therapy is about. It's just like, don't ruminate in that stuff. Like, we weren't made to ruminate about things. Like, hard stuff is going to happen to you. You need to know that you can get through hard stuff. Like, that's my motto to myself. It's like, I can do hard things. I tell myself that all the time. I tell my kids that all the time. It's like, you can do hard things. I want you to know that. You take nothing else away from me as a mother. It's like, I want you to know that you can do hard things. I think that's the most powerful thing that we can enable ourselves to know. And people are like, well, what, sometimes I I just got to ask that question on a podcast the other day. What if you don't know you can do hard things? It's like, well, start with something a little bit challenging, like pick something and do it.
Right.
Even if you don't want to do it, because you need to prove to yourself that you can do hard things. So for me, sometimes it's like, it's really challenging, like getting in a fight in an octagon. That's a really hard thing to do every single time. It's really hard to
Unthinkably
do
hard
it.
for some of us.
Yeah, it's insane. But I do it, and I love the fact that I prove to myself that I can do hard things.
Yeah.
But maybe for you, it's like, maybe for someone, it's a roller coaster. Maybe it's eating a food that they're a little bit uncomfortable with. Maybe it's like there's all kinds of things that are little daily challenges, and I'm constantly setting challenges up with myself on a regular basis because I just like to do hard things. I just like to know that I constantly have little goals, daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, yearly goals.
Yeah.
But I got to challenge myself in all kinds of ways.
I think about the ice bath thing, especially in the morning, and I think there's a connection there with getting up in the morning and doing an ice bath when obviously you're not going to feel like doing it, and you just do it, right? For me, it's swimming. I hate swimming. My dad once told me that I look like I'm drowning when I'm swimming.
And it stuck with you?
What's that?
You still remember it?
Yeah, I do, because I was swimming laps in my pool when I was a kid, and he ran out because he thought I needed to be saved or rescued. I said, I'm just swimming. He's like, oh, I thought you were drowning. But I hate doing it because I really do feel like I'm drowning. So now I've made it a point to try to do it like at least 3 times a week in the morning,
That is so good.
And I hate it.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it, but I do it because I know I'm going to hate it. And I know, if I can do that, then the rest of my day feels like a relative cakewalk.
Yeah.
Well, everything you've talked about of letting these emotions kind of run through us, these states run through us, is very Buddhist, I think. It's talking about how we are not our thoughts. We are not our emotions. Everything is impermanent. And I remember another guy we sat down with, which is Richie Davidson, who's the scientific advisor of the Dalai Lama. And
yes, I saw that podcast. I want to listen to that one. That looked so good.
Yeah, I mean, and he's incredible. We only got to scratch the surface with him this time, but I've been to his conferences for Mind and Life, and had Buddhist monks kind of give us education about contemplative sciences and how to bring Eastern practice, mindfulness, meditation into the scientific and educational communities. And one of them talked about a doorman analogy, where he had thoughts or guests coming into the hotel that you are a doorman at, and your objective is only to welcome the guests in and then see them out when their time is done, but not to go and entertain them on the 11th floor party or into
that's so good.
So on and so forth. And so your job is just to be present at the front door.
Yes.
And you're going to see thoughts, attitudes, beliefs that you really hate. That might be the I hate you thoughts, the intrusive thoughts, the ones that are really negative. And your objective is not to identify with them, to be them, or to follow them into the hotel.
Right.
It is just to say, oh, I recognize you. Welcome back.
Yes.
I know you'll leave at some point, and when you do, I'll say goodbye.
Yeah.
They also put as watching the clouds just float by. Each cloud is a thought, and you're just a spectator. You're just watching them float by.
Yes, and it's like when you practice mindfulness, it is noticing, and more so getting curious about noticing the thoughts that you have, as opposed to either trying to ignore them and move through something else, move to something else, and just like don't give it anything, like you're not greeting the thought, right? And I find when I practice mindfulness that it's like, oh, then I get curious, like, well, why are these thoughts coming to me? Well, maybe there's some work that I need to do, or something I need to address, or maybe I need to let it out. Maybe I need to cry. So I cry as hard as I can, instead of just kind of like trying to hold it back. It's like, just like let it move through me. It's like it's all good, and at the end of that, then I'll feel much better than I did if I carried all of it around with me all the time.
What if you told a bunch of up and coming fighters this, like you were in an audience giving a talk, and this is your philosophy that you're telling everybody as advice? What do you think they would? How would they respond?
I think it might be eye-opening. I would hope that it would be, but you have to be ready to receive this kind of thing, and we're at all different times and all different stages of our life, and I don't take any offense if this doesn't resonate with them at that point, because I'm not sure that at all times it would have resonated with me, because I just wouldn't have had a complete look, and we gain perspective, and that's the beauty about aging. That is like the best part of getting older,
Yeah.
is that we gain perspective and we're able to look at things with a wider lens. And then I think our responsibility and job is to try to influence and help the younger people like learn those things younger as well. But sometimes it's like planting a seed at the wrong time of year.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that the seed's bad. It's just that the environment wasn't ready to receive it yet.
Never
So you
will.
just got to, you keep trying and you just keep putting these things out. And, when you are someone who wills the universe to help you out, it will happen. You will find it. You will get the solution. You will get the answer. And, maybe this podcast will drop on your lap. It's just one of those things. Like that's just part of living life. We can't hold on to things too long. We can't hold on to that first house too long. We'd be ready to let it burn down and build it again and be ready to receive information and grow and learn.
Yeah. Incredible. 3, 2, 1.
What about your kids? You don't let them fight?
I'm going to support them in anything that they want to do. But if I had any say in it, any choice, which I know that at some point in their life I will not, I would not choose it for them. Yeah, I would.
It's kind of my answer to the football question. I get that because I give a lot of talks on CTE, and that's the same answer I give for my kids, my boys.
Yeah.
There's lots of things to do out there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would cause the exact same thrill you got.
Yeah, but I do know that should they choose, a career that is dangerous, I will do everything I can to make them the best at it, help them be the best at it, and provide them with anything that I can that's a resource to mitigate any potential risk, because I think life is boring without risk.
Yeah.
So I would really understand if my children want to do something very risky, like you want to live, don't you? Like you really want to experience life, and I never want to take that away from them, even though it might be really hard as a parent to watch these little beings that walk around, like your heart and soul, walk around outside of your body, do something that's like dangerous. Now I really empathize with my mother in that first fight. Remember when I told you guys, and I was like just bleeding? She found me in the back bleeding over a trash can. I mean, just imagine as a mom, like seeing your 19-year-old daughter just go in and just get hurt in a way. It's like you can't get in there and protect. Like, would you, it's like, I'm sure I have so many bridges still yet to cross, but I do understand, Mom. I understand that was probably really difficult. And thank you for being there. Sorry for all the gray hair.
Incredible.
All right, we close with a 3-2-1 closer. So it's a series of questions, 3 truths about MMA, 2 myths about MMA, and then 1 thing you could tell anyone today to be a better competitor or to protect their brain better.
Okay, so 3 truths about MMA.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to personalize this because I feel like I could get general, like, well, we throw punches, but I'm not going to do that. I think for me, MMA, it's a test. It's a test every single day that you are going to find yourself tested. You're going to find out what you're made of. And I just feel like that's why people do what they do. I think another truth about MMA, it's a strategic game. It's not violence. You could say is a part of it, yes, but there's so much more to it. It's a very, it's a big misunderstanding. Maybe that goes under myth, that people think that it's violent. I don't see violence. So maybe that was a myth. Can I throw that one in there as a myth?
Yep.
What are some other truths about MMA? I think that, that people come from all different styles and walks of life. And that's one thing that makes it really interesting is like the variation, unlike something that's like, just boxing or just wrestling or just taekwondo, is that you get to see who's the best at their craft in like their own personalized way of doing a myriad of things. So I feel like that's great. Is this how people normally answer this? I feel like am I being weird in general? Okay. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like there's, probably like something like, a doctor could just be like, well, this is a fact. Like mine's not really factual.
No, this is a personal.
All right. And I think another truth about MMA is that it can be beautiful in the breaking. I think MMA was made to find your breaking point. I feel like people that go out for MMA, I guess we want to know where we break. Like, what's the point? And that's constantly moving, and we're always trying to move that line. We're trying to push that threshold and see what we're made out of. And you know, sometimes I'll go through practices and be like, I'm not gonna make it. Like, I'm gonna, like, literally, I'm just gonna pass out. I'm gonna die right here, you know. And you just don't think you're gonna make it through the hour and a half. It's just, they're just so hard. Like, I don't think I can do this. And then there's something so rewarding about getting through that hard session. You know, it's just like, and then it just becomes about simplifying it to, like, just not the whole practice, but, like, just what's the next little thing you can do. It's like, well, you know, you pick one thing, and pretty soon you get through a practice and you're like, I didn't know I could do that. And I think that's where I started to learn that I could do hard things. It was like those wrestling practices in high school. You're just getting smashed on by the guys, and you're just like, I'm not gonna make it. And then you make it, and you're like, wow, I really didn't think I could do that, and I did it, and here I am, and I'm better for it. So I just think it's something that's always going to elevate you. And a myth. This would be my second myth. I'm too old for it. You're never too old for mixed martial arts. There's always some degree that you can do, and it is way more fun than running on a treadmill or swimming. I mean, some people might disagree. Maybe Michael Phelps is like, no way, you know. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I just think the fun aspect of it, the community aspect, is more likely to keep people wanting to come back. So if you've never really been somebody who's like, I just, you know, I go to the gym and then I fall off, it's like, probably because it's boring. It's boring. Like, you're doing something boring. You're going, like, lifting weights and running. It's like, that's what we do just as, like, a supplemental thing, because we just want to make sure our cardio is on point, but it's not fun. Nobody likes doing that except maybe power lifters or something, but general people, no. Have fun when you go to the gym. Like, go punch things. Like, it's great. Even just a cardio kickboxing class, somebody holding mitts for you. I swear women need to hit things. I swear by it. Like, women need to hit things at times. I think you men would fare a lot better if every woman took at least cardio kickboxing.
We would behave better.
Yeah, you'd behave better too.
Out of fear.
Yeah, so I think that's another thing. Yeah, and sometimes that, you know, a big myth used to be it's not for girls. Yeah, it's not for girls. It's not for women. Yeah, so now I see little girls all the time in the gym on the mat. It's not even abnormal. It's very, very normal to walk in and see just as many girls on the mats as there is boys. And it's like, it's so cool, because that was a big uphill battle when I first started. Was, you know, Dana White being like, women will never be in the UFC.
You paved the way, Miesha.
I was part of it. Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
One thing anyone can do today to stay competitive as a fighter or to protect their brain?
Yeah. I think seek your knowledge. I think knowledge is power. And knowledge also is your intuition. Knowing yourself is power. So it's hand in hand. We've talked a lot about that in the podcast. Is like, how do you listen to yourself, and how do you take information, and how do you blend those two worlds? Because I think that is where we get the most powerful self. To be able to make a decision, you know, and your body's your best friend. Your body's your best doctor. You know, like, if you go, no offense, but if you go and see a doctor who's a specialist, or, you know, generally it's like you have a problem with your shoulder, you go to the shoulder doctor, you're just going to say, like, okay, well, I'm focused on the shoulder, right? Your body is like this complete doctor that already knows what it wants to do. So what tools can you give it to help it do what it already wants to do? Because, you know, body's pretty good at that if we don't get in the way of it. So, you know, I think that would kind of be my advice.
Love that.
Incredible. Where can people find you, listen to more of you?
Well, if you guys want to listen to my podcast, it's called Built for Growth, and we talk about all things growth, whether it's mindset, whether it's biohacking, you know, longevity, all the different things. I have great conversations with people who are way smarter than me, and just really or inspire me to level up and be my next best self. So I'm constantly chasing that. So Built for Growth is the podcast, and Instagram, Facebook, all the other things, TikTok, just at Miesha Tate. So you can find me there. It's Miesha. Don't spell it wrong, or you might get some people asking you for money. That's not me. So, you know, but like, Zell me. No, it's not. So there's a lot of those weird accounts out there, but
awesome.
That's it.
Anything else?
And MieshaTate.com website.
Website.
Yeah, I have a newsletter. I write those myself. I don't use AI.
Perfect.
You got to qualify nowadays. You
Yeah.
got to say it.
Yeah, I know you do,
It's
because
nuts.
it's like this. A lot of people just draft those up, and I just feel like I really want mine to be personal.
Yeah.
I want you to know like what I'm going through on that weekly or every other week when I send those out. It's like these are personal journeys of mine and personal thoughts and personal growth that I'm sharing with people.
Yeah.
To see you express yourself throughout your whole career, I mean, it's rare that you get to see someone in the public eye for such a long period of time. But you've obviously built yourself and your career for not only growth but longevity, which I think a lot of the other competitors that you've met along the way haven't. They were out there to die. They were out there for the outcome, but you've kind of gotten some maturity, some peace within yourself that has taught you this new strategy. And
Yeah.
I mean, you're outliving.
Yeah, but
the others.
honestly, by the grace of God or the universe or whatever you want to call it, because there certainly was a time when I was out there to die too, and I thought about whether my life was worth living. I debated it, I really did,
Yeah.
and it was when I decided to retire was that I knew that I couldn't keep doing what I was doing, because that is the definition of insanity, thinking that you're going to get another outcome. And I was so depressed and I was so upset, and I was just I completely lost sight of any value outside of sport. And you lose 2 times in a row, you lose your belt. It's like you feel like nothing.
Yeah.
And in all of that darkness, it was that growth mindset, I think, that helped me. And then the connection with family, the connection, spiritual connection, those things really helped me through those hard moments. But then just knowing I can do hard things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the insight. So down to earth, so incredible, and kind of these recommendations and whatnot. I really didn't know what to expect coming into this conversation, and I'm absolutely blown away by you, by what you've done in your career, but then also the insight that you've developed and this whole mindfulness aspect to it. I'm absolutely blown away. Thank you so much. Thank you for doing what you do.
It was my pleasure. It really was.
Yeah.
And thank you guys. This was
Yeah.
great. It was a
Coming
great
to talk to us.
opportunity. So I appreciate you, and we'll definitely stay in touch. I'm going to continue to pick your brains because I love to learn this stuff.
We're here for it.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe for round 2. Thank you, everybody. This is the Better Brain Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. The great and powerful Miesha Tate. And enjoy the process, and make sure be better.